actually incorrect.
Streams up.
It's not dangerous to wake a sleepwalker. They won't have a heart attack or be put into a coma. They'll just be confused, and it won't be pleasant for them. That's it. No one was ever burned at the Salem witch trials. They were all either hanged, died in jail, or crushed by rocks. You can put birds back
I don't
in
see
their
the
nests.
stream.
The mother
The
will
stream
not
is up.
reject
Wait
them.
for it. Keep
It's
refreshing the
commonly
page.
said that
I'm gonna
lightning never
smack a
strikes
bitch.
twice in the same
You gonna
place.
slap a
Oh,
bitch?
look, Bob
In
Ross is
fact,
streaming.
it doesn't frequently.
Oh, so you can watch this stream.
There are not different sections
Oh,
of the
bro.
tongue for each taste.
I don't see your
Even
stream.
phytate
I see
spiders
your
are
own
here
line.
in
I
their
don't see your
sleep.
stream.
Spiders generally like cool,
Very weird.
dry places. The inside of your
Refresh
mouth
your
is not
fucking
an
page,
appealing
ho.
place for them. We
See, the
only
only
use
reason I
10%
found your
of
stream
our
is
brain
through
power.
being on my
You
friend
always
list,
use
which
12
is the funny
watts.
part.
That is
The
the
fuck?
total power of the brain. The phrase
Oh, my
wasn't
chest.
Luke, I'm your father. It was no, I am your father. Daddy longlegs are the most venomous spiders in the world, but they can't bite you. I hate this one so damn much. Daddy longlegs
wanna get rid of
spiders
stupid
are not
pan for it,
venomous
'cause it's
to humans
useless.
at all. No, they can't bite you. But even if they could, you won't die or come anywhere close. Gladiator games
My
in
borders
Action
are
Grove were
disgusting.
not two
Oh my
men go
god.
in. One
In a
comes
bad way,
out.
I meant.
The figure I've seen in most studders is a
What
chance
the
of
fuck
one.
is that even?
9 for a gladiator.
It's
Who
my
drew that?
emote. It's my emote.
That he
Who
took
drew
part
that?
in.
I found it
That's
offline.
I-
I found it on the
of course,
internet.
but still means
I need to
that,
talk about that.
in most cases,
How about you talk to the person that
wasn't
drew
a
it?
fight to the death. That it takes
Okay,
7 years
that's
to
cool.
digest gum.
Uh,
The beverage used
I made
by
it my
Jim
email.
Jones to kill all of those people was not Kool-Aid. It was another brand called Flavor Aid.
I was supposed to draw that
Fact
now.
then,
Think about
putting butter on a
Yeah, I'll
bone
do
will
it
heal
later.
it. Fact now.
Let's get
Don't
this
try it.
Pokemon
You
done.
don't defibrillate someone to revive them from death.
You!
Defibrillators are used to fix irregular heartbeats, not restart a stopped
People still
heart.
play as girl characters in
The belief
Pokemon?
that
That's
Jingle
crazy.
Nigga, I'm
Bells
a
was
girl.
written to be a Christmas song.
That don't matter.
It was
What you mean it
intended
don't
to be
matter?
a Thanksgiving song. The
Equal rights,
Tuskegee
equal
syphilis
face.
experiment
I forgot to
didn't
put the
involve
stupid
injecting
Panfor away.
people
I'm
with
so dumb.
syphilis, as is commonly believed.
Forgot
It's
to put
still
what away?
used as the
The
go-to
Panfor.
example of unethical medical experiments. However,
I
because it
forgot
involved
what's the
observing the
Panfor.
progression of untreated syphilis,
You said
and
what?
not treating subjects with penicillin when it became available. That fish have
Are you
a
playing?
2-second memory. They have up to a 3-year memory.
Yeah, I got on.
Okay.
Walking
I'm just
around
making sure.
barefoot is not a way to catch a cold. Paul Revere was not a hero of any
Why the
kind.
fuck did I heal
First, he
twice?
never
Yo,
would
like
have
I'm
fought the British
literally
Army
autopiloting right now.
because they were all British.
I healed twice.
I thought you were supposed to remove the
It would have
Panfor.
alerted the British forces, where he was with all his
Thank you,
yelling.
Wesley.
Paul Revere.
He's a dumbass
It was
bitch.
ride 12
That's the reason why I was like
miles and
MIA
then get
for like a little
caught.
bit.
Also, he wasn't the only rider. The accurate event.
I was
and
high in
one that is way
concentration.
more compelling and interesting was
High.
Sybil Ludington.
No,
Yeah,
high in
He was only
concentration.
16
Thanks.
years
Oh,
old.
that's the
Prior
Panfor.
to her
I
famous
only use my
ride,
Panfor for
Sybil saved her father from capture. A loyalist named Ichabod Prose.
Mel, why are you
and 50
typing in the
other
fucking chat?
loyalists tried to capture
'Cause I
her
can.
father.
Because you
But Sybil
can,
lit
okay.
candles around the house and organized
Don't
her
make me
siblings
suck a
to march
bitch.
in front of the
'Cause
windows
I
in military fashion,
will.
creating the
Don't
impression
make me
of many
suck a
troops
bitch.
guarding the house. The loyalists fled. 9. On April 26th, 1777.
This layout is more easier on the
Sybil
eyes than the
Ludington
other
rode her
one. I don't know
horse,
what the fuck that
Star,
was.
40 miles through the night in Putnam County.
You built
New
like a
York,
swallow.
to
And you
alert
built like a
400
fucking
revolutionaries of
Espion.
the upcoming
Thick.
arrival of British soldiers. Young Sybil carried a stick on horseback
I can't
to
with
bang on the doors she
Can't with me.
passed, cutting down on her travel time. Her heroism brought George Washington to her house to personally thank her. So why does Paul Revere get the credit? He had a publicist. The peen is a muscle. False. The peen consists of a unique tissue that inflates with
Then what the
blood
fuck is
and
it?
restricts the blood from leaving, which inflates the tissue and creates an erection. The same type of tissue exists in your nose, which is why you get a stuffy nose from sneezing/crying/allergies, all of which increase blood flow to the face. You don't need to wait.
Yo, my
30
biggest
minutes
pet
after a
peeve
meal
is
to
stuffy
go
notes. I'd
swimming.
rather have anything else
That the
besides
blood
a
in your
stuffy
body
note.
is blue until it hits oxygen. People actually did expect the Spanish Inquisition. They were given a 30-day period where they could confess their sins before the Inquisition would come for them. Another one is cow tipping. Cows don't sleep standing up. The ones standing are
That's
usually
called
like a
cow
guard duty to
tipping.
alert the others who are sleeping should a danger arise. No one is sneaking up on an awake cow and pushing it over. Last one off the top of my head is the old.
That reminds me of Cars.
That's
Taxi
not
chicken.
gonna do
Oh yeah.
anything.
Wait,
No engine
di-
death, syrup in the
are you in the
sun,
next city?
etc. Sugar doesn't dissolve in
Yeah.
gasoline and the sugar isn't going to make it past the fuel filter into
Fuck, I
the
should've said
engine
yeah.
when it gets sucked up the pump. Worst case scenario, you clog the filter and spend about $6 to
Okay, I'm gonna go
replace it.
catch my other Pokemon.
There's no solid division between left
Also, want to
and
buy some
right brain.
repels.
The left side can learn right brain skills and vice versa. Napoleon wasn't short. He was actually 5 feet 7, which was considered average to tall height for the time. Apparently the only way we can surmise that the urban legend started that he was short was because of the difference between English and French imperial units, which led to his height seeming small.
I'm
by
collecting
British
my
figures.
dancers.
That the Great Wall of China
Okay.
is visible from space. No man-made object is
Who still
visible
believes the
from
Great
that
Wall
high
of China is visible from
Sherlock
space?
Holmes never said, elementary, my dear Watson. Dogs don't sweat through their tongues. They sweat through their foot pads.
I
Crap
thought
is all
so.
digested and unprocessable food waste, when really up to 50% of it is dead bacteria cells. This is something men probably don't know. Period blood doesn't just flow out constantly. It can stop for a while and continue. One time my flow stopped for an entire day and I stopped wearing pads because I thought my period was over. Just to be happily reminded that my body hates me by staining my favorite jeans the next day and continuing to do so for a few more days. That nobody loves you. Violets are blue. Violets are violet. That a tomato isn't a vegetable. A tomato is technically a fruit in the botanical sense, because
What?
there's no such thing as a vegetable in botany.
A
Vegetable
tomato.
is a culinary term and a tomato
Oh,
would
that's
be
what you went to go
classified
catch?
as one.
Yes.
There are only
You-
3
you know
states
this
of
game, know
matter,
this game, alright.
solid, liquid and
Alright,
gas. There is also plasma as well as other special situations such as superfluids.
Oh wait,
Kirk never
is that
said,
what Scraggy is?
"Beam me up."
Scraggy.
In Star
Scraggy's.
Trek,
Yeah, that's where Scraggy
dogs
is.
don't age 7 years for every
I don't know where
human
you
year.
went, but okay.
Multiple factors determine age equivalency in dogs. It's
Oh, come
okay
the
to
fuck
drink
on.
milk when you've got a cold. It won't give you more mucus. That I'm not as funny as I think I'm according to my wife. Maybe not so much a fact, but I feel it is common that people think the electricity in their home is not really dangerous and can't kill them. As an electrician I can tell you, that is 100% false. Shaving will make it come back thicker. If so,
Who
then
still
we
believes
have
in
huge
that?
painful black, orange, blonde, brunette or orange branch-sized hairs growing from our body by now, if you shave. Lol. It's not the volts
Where
that
the
kill
fuck
you,
did you go?
it's the amps. Amps
All the
don't
way
even
up.
exist
Nothing can
without
stop me. I'm
volts,
all the way
but
up.
volts do exist without amps. It does take a certain
That's what
amount
drug
of
dealers
current,
say.
amps, to
The
kill
what?
you. But it also requires a certain amount of voltage to push that current through you. If the voltage is not high enough, then it cannot push that current through your body. The higher the
Oh, there's a
voltage,
Pokemon gym.
the more easily it can push current
Not available
through you
yet.
and do some killing along the way.
Why not?
Which one does the
You have to
killing?
do
They
other
both do.
shit.
Similar to getting hit by a
Like-
bus, you need the bus, and you need the bus to have velocity in order for it to run you down. Eating carrots doesn't improve your eyesight. In WWII, the British had come up with a novel way to spot incoming German bombing raids radar, but to keep the Germans from discovering it, they attributed
Damn,
their
Espeon will be
amazing ability to
overleveled for,
spot
like,
airplanes at night to their
forever.
raiding crews eating lots of carrots. Thanks to British deadpan humor, people have been believing this.
Nope, I
crap
can't
for
catch
80
Scraggy
plus
here. This is
years.
Route 4. You catch Scraggy
There
on
is
Route
only
18.
one type of
Oh, really?
Chimo.
Okay.
For those of you unfortunate enough to know the truth firsthand, I'm
I
sorry.
thought you could get a
but
Scraggy
while
here.
talking about the different types of
Oh.
Chimo I've been on, dozens of people have asked, wait, isn't there only one kind of Chimo? No, my innocent child. No. That if you encounter an alligator, you should run in zigzag, do one zag, and just run straight. You shouldn't tilt your head back.
Oh my god, I
If
want
you
a
have
female
an
Sandile.
nosebleed, it causes the blood to run backwards and down the throat, and you can choke on it, or it could even enter your stomach. Cold doesn't get you sick, could just weakens your immune system, which makes it easier for you to get sick. Chameleons do not change color based on the background. It's based on health, temperature, and mood. A lot of things the US government
You could-
passed
I-
over
I
science
learned- you
about
could get
psychedelics
Scraggy
in
here.
the 60s and 70s have been proven
Look at my
false.
stream. There's a
That's not
Scraggy.
for-
LSD
Look,
doesn't
look
harm
at
your
it.
brain or cause
Right on
psychosis. It can exaggerate
It's-
pre-existing psychosis.
I don't know where you. Okay, show me your screen.
that it takes the Earth
I've been-
24
No,
hours to
no,
rotate
it's okay,
one
it's okay,
time.
it's good.
It actually takes the Earth about 23 hours and
How much is-
56 minutes to rotate once, in reference
I
to the rest of
searched
the
them yesterday.
universe. However, the Earth is traveling around the Sun, so it takes the Earth another 4 minutes, or so, to return to the same position it was relative to the Sun. The R in R-15 stands for Assault Rifle. It actually stands for Armor Light, the company that engineered the rifle. Mount Everest is the tallest mountain. If you're talking about sea level, you are right. But if you're talking about from when it starts going up, it's Mauna Kea in Hawaii, because most of it is underwater. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Kellogg's paid researchers to create studies confirming that statement, and started using it as a slogan to sell more cereal. Rick never
I'm
says
tired of
play it
this.
again. Sam in Casablanca. You don't need to wait 24 hours before contacting the police if someone has gone missing. Bulls are able to see more than one color. Decimate doesn't mean to completely wipe out. It means to remove 10%. That most Redditors are weird virgins. I know it's a kind of joke, but still I would say there are way more regular people than there are strange people on Reddit.
Oh my god, I just want a female
That
fucking
line is like
Sandile.
a seal over the whole bag, and if it's intact, that's the way to tell if a girl is a virgin. This is original content. This is she is incorrect English, even though it sounds a little fancier. So the correct answer to "Can I speak with Gertrude?" is actually no, frick off. That the people who did the manual work to build the ancient pyramids were slaves.
Oh, look, a
They were
female
not
Canada.
slaves. They were paid. Most
Must
of
be
them were
fucking
farmers
nice.
who back quote S
I can't
had
find a
flooded
fucking
and
trade.
needed work. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Albert Einstein. Einstein never said that, and that's not the definition of insanity. As someone who lives in a former Confederate state, the idea that the American Civil War was fought over states' rights and was entirely unrelated to slavery. For one, leading up to the secession of the South and the outbreak of war, slavery was a hot-button issue in politics, leading to various ill-fated compromises leading up to the election of Lincoln. For another, in their ordinances and articles of secession from the U.S., several states that formed the Confederacy either hinted at or expressly listed slavery as a primary reason to secede, and many slave states had grievances against northern states for their laws involving slavery and the travel of slaves, which ironically means that the southern states didn't exactly respect the rights of non-slaveholding
Please have
states.
Moxie, please have
For a
Moxie.
third, the Confederate Constitution, unlike the U.S. Constitution, which only
Fuck,
refers
that's
to
intimidating.
people
I
held
want
in
it.
service of labor, which included slaves and indentured servants, directly and explicitly refers to slavery and the ownership of slaves.
Wait, let me be more
Specifically
specific. A
African slaves.
female Sandile
Also,
with
once
Moxie,
Lincoln
not
signed the
intimidating.
Emancipation Proclamation, which, fun fact, only freed slaves held in territories not occupied by the Union. Slavery was by far the main issue in regards to fighting in the minds of many soldiers, Union and Confederate alike. Simply put, as John Oliver said it, if the Civil War wasn't about slavery, someone should go back in time and tell the Confederacy. You only use 3% of your brain. No, you use it all. People kill others because of video games. Daddy long legs are not very venomous.
Oh my
They can bite
god,
you,
everything
but are
else
just
but a
mostly
Sandile.
docile. And they are actually not even spiders. They are reptilians. A relative of spiders. A bite from would be about as bad as a mosquito bite. Vaccines do not, actually, cause autism. Surprise everyone. The phrase
Vaccines
blood is
cause
thicker than
autism.
water
I've
is
had
often
another
said to say
Scraggy.
family comes first
Wait.
no matter what. But the phrase in full is the blood of the covenant
Yeah, I
is
can
thicker
get
than the water of the
can
womb,
get where you
which
got.
was supposed to mean
What you mean you
blood
can't get
brothers or
'em?
those who shed blood
much
together
a
were
pill is?
often closer than family members.
You know where I am?
Basically meaning that the people you
They're
choose
wrong.
as your friends
Yeah.
or go through
Oh, let
hard
me see
times
what-
with are, in fact, usually much more important to you than most family members. There's a widespread belief that baby rattlesnakes are way more
You have to keep
venomous than
going.
adults.
Like, how am I getting
The composition of
Scraggies
the
and you're
venom
not?
doesn't change
We
as
have the
snake
same, almost the
grows,
same
and the
game.
proportion of venom released in a bite doesn't change much either. I think this belief started because baby snakes of any species are much smaller, and therefore more vulnerable. That might cause them to
It's
act
in
more
Route 4.
offensively if provoked.
Only
Snakes in
in
general
what?
are misunderstood creatures. That hot water opens your pores and
Oh.
cold water closes them. Your pores don't change.
Yeah.
The only difference is that
Sorry.
hot water can be drying to the skin, whereas cold water isn't.
Damn, I'm
and drying
sorry.
out your skin again and again can cause it to
Wait, that
overproduce
means I
sebum,
can't get his. Oh,
developing
oh, oh.
zits on the face and body.
So what are you gonna
If have
do?
acne-prone skin. But also don't make out that hot water is the devil. It's really good for relaxing your muscles. Mother Teresa was a good person. Nope. Look it up. She believed suffering was a gift from God, and spent a vast majority of her time flying private jets
Where's
and
the resort?
accepting gifts. Cold
This
does
is
not
something
give you
in
a cold.
the after game.
It lowers down your immune
Oh,
system,
no.
making it easier for the virus to infect. In other words, you could be cold as hell in an sterile room, that you won't get a cold. Hypothermia maybe. Add oil to your pasta water. No, that does absolutely frick all good. Your pasta will stick if you don't stir it in the first few minutes regardless. If it does adhere to the pasta, you don't even want that, as it stops your sauce binding. Bill Clinton did in fact have sexual relations with that woman. Neil Armstrong claimed that he said that's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. Not that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. It is one of the most misquoted quotes probably ever. That there's only two sexes, male and female. Intersex people, who are definitely not hermaphrodites, are a thing, and they are the same percentage of the population as people with red hair. So chances are you've met someone who's intersex. Hell, you could even be intersex, and not even know it. Because there's many different ways to be intersex, and you could never know, unless you take a specific test. If you're interested in the topic, I suggest checking out the Youtuber Pigeon. They explain it very well, and also talk about stigma and the many inhumane things some intersex kids often endure from the medical community. That electricity is as fast as light. It's fast, but it's about 100x slower than light. The reason we get a signal almost as fast as light through wire is because it's like pushing marbles through a tube. Put one in, one comes out the other end. Don't put one in, nothing comes out. There's your binary. People thinking that completely wiping out the all fat in their diets is okay. Point, your body still needs fats to properly absorb some nutrients, but don't go overboard. The blob.
Oh my god, why
looks
does somebody
like
fucking
a hunk of
Darmakos?
sloppy meat. This is not true. It actually looks quite normal in the deep sea. But when caught
A
in
sand
fish, their
dial.
flesh is being severely damaged due to the speed they're pulled up to the surface, and the pressure causes their
The
body
frames
to
are dropped.
start to
Oh,
sag.
because I'm speeding it
English
up.
is the most spoken language in the world.
That's why it's
It's
dropping.
actually
That's
Chinese.
cheating.
Look it up. Blood isn't blue when there's no oxygen in it. Blood vessels just appear.
Okay,
blue on the
look,
surface
I'm
due
trying to
the
get a
body
sand dial
waters absorb it.
fast.
In actuality, blood is red when it has oxygen in it, and dark red when it doesn't. Peeing on a jellyfish sting makes it worse, not better. Milk is basic. In fact, it is slightly acidic. Water in a flushing toilet does not rotate counterclockwise due to the Coriolis effect. The spin is imparted to the
I just want a
water from the
fucking
mold
sand
inlet
dial.
via offset jets as water in motion.
That's all I
This
want,
suspended
like, literally all I
particulate
want
matter to create a more
is a
thorough
sand
flush.
dial.
The
Can't even have
Coriolis
that.
effect only applies to masses not directly attached or in contact with the earth, such
A
as
sand dial with
cyclone.
Moxie. Sorry.
That human beings come in different races. There is only one
And I keep
race,
getting
Homo
Darumakas.
sapiens. Ethnicities are not races. They are a distinction without a difference. If you think there is a difference, I have news for you. Step on a crack and break your mother's back. Turns out it's jackhammers controlled by anti-fairies that break the back, not stepping on a crack. Hell isn't biblical. Every time you see the word hell in a Bible, it's an intentional mistranslation. The original words have clear meanings like the grave, destruction, and that valley with a bad reputation, where people go to burn their trash. The Christian Bible is a collection of Jewish literature written by Jews. Hell/the underworld isn't a Jewish concept. It's a pagan one, shoehorned on by Romans who couldn't help but layer their own existing mythology onto the original. I before E, except after C.
Oh my god, I don't want Intimidate.
It's actually square. Proof. Minecraft. Earth doesn't orbit the sun. All of the planets, including the sun, orbit a center of mass within the solar system. This center of mass happens to be very close to the sun, which causes us to think we are orbiting the sun. But we aren't. Bats are blind.
I just realized I don't have
Most
anything to
people
fight this
believe
gym with.
Edison invented the light bulb, but he didn't.
A fire type.
It's illegal to have the light on in your car. It's just a lie our aunt told us. Because
I'll just
of
catch
the
this shit.
Bible.
You said
Bamboo
what?
is as strong as steel. It really is not. Some tests were done on a
Aren't you
very
taking
small,
Darmaka?
defect-free specimens of bamboo and had reportedly ultimate tensile strengths UTS of up to 250 MPa. For comparison, steel used in typical applications ranges from 350, 500 MPa UTS. The issue with the bamboo testing is that it is not representative of a partial culm, let alone a full one. And there is such variance in different samples, meaning this cannot be relied upon. The actual characteristic strength that bamboo ranges from 30, 50 MPa, so is more comparable to something like a hardwood such as oak. What's the dumbest rule you had in school? In primary school, we weren't allowed to use erasers. We were never told why. In grade school we were told not to use spoons. Only babies used spoons. Yet they gave us spoons. It wasn't the rule, but the wording. Grade 9. They made an announcement that you couldn't show your respect in the school.
Damn, you saw that?
The admin decided to
Damn.
word that
I
as
didn't think you caught
cleavage.
that.
No water bottles, because a few girls 4 years ago snuck alcohol into the bathroom. We weren't allowed to be indoors for more than 5 minutes at recess. This was in Canada, and indoor recess started when it was below 25°C. Instances of school-wide diarrhea really shot up during the winter. In 3rd grade we had to have playmates. It basically meant that we couldn't play with our friends on the breaks /
Sandal is really
recess.
cool.
We had to play in a group. That group was filled with students from other classes too. Not fun. Couldn't wear flip-flops because they were considered a weapon, but you could wear stiletto heels. Buses were not allowed to depart at the end of the school day until the flag on the flagpole outside the main entrance had been taken down and properly put away. If someone forgot, all the buses would sit there idling for as long as it would take until the flag was dealt with. In elementary school,
Are you
we
doing
couldn't
that
play
Trano
ball
Battle
at
Tower thing?
recess because the school was afraid we would
The
kick
heck?
the balls to the top of the building.
There's like a bunch of trainers
No
just
one
supposed to
could
be
wear Joe's
fighting.
Crab Shack shirts. At first it was just the tie-dye ones that said, peace, love and crabs. Because of the implication of sex included, it was, I suppose.
You found one?
But then they expanded to any Joe's
Then
Crab
that
Shack
freaking
shirts. My friend had to wear
that
a
website is
shirt all day
garbage.
because her shirt was a Joe's Crab Shack shirt. It didn't have offensive slogan on it. It just had a picture of
This
a
is what I
crab
give
and
up
the
on.
restaurant's name. She still had to change shirts. She was so embarrassed because no one wants to wear your pet shirt all day.
Yeah.
When I was a freshman in high school, late 80s, there was a designated smoking area on campus. It was a square, maybe 10 foot x 10 painted on the ground in the courtyard. Students could only smoke in that box on campus. The next year they decided that you could only smoke in that box if you had a note from your parents. The year after that, no students were allowed to smoke on campus. My senior year,
Wait, why are you fighting a full
staff
tower?
wasn't allowed to smoke on campus.
So you could level up your
This resulted in the box
Pokemon?
metaphorically moving to someone's
I
driveway
mean,
across
my
the
Pokemon
street,
are-
where students and teachers
I mean,
were
like-
all smoking together.
Like what?
No hats was basically the only dress code my school had. The dumbest thing
Like-
was
like-
the reasoning behind it. It was put into effect after Columbine because
It's been about to
apparently
like
different
carry a little bit
groups,
because
jocks, nerds,
I feel like everyone's gonna get
goths,
one shot at it.
etc.
All
wore
level
different
20.
headgear to differentiate themselves. We couldn't wear winter clothing. in
Congratulations,
class,
you
coats,
grinded.
gloves, hats, even with the heat on.
That's what it's
It
all
got
about.
cold in the winter inside the school, so we just had to freeze. They said it was because winter clothing were gang symbols. This was a farm town in
I
Wisconsin.
remember, like,
At my grade school we weren't allowed to wear ankle socks. You would get detention if you did. We could not touch each other. All physical contact was banned.
Look
There
at
was
Quick
one
Balls.
teacher that claimed, if it wasn't for this rule, we would all
What you
be
gonna name
running
her?
around
Swaggy?
helping each other. Ah, yes, truly the time of my life. Bandanas and headbands that were similar to bandanas were banned and ad.
My name is
The
Carl.
reason was that it
Carl?
increased
Who the
gang
fuck
violence
that?
among 11,
Hi, I'm
14-year-olds in the suburbs of a small
I feel
town
like
in
Skaggy's like
Canada.
Carl. No?
Can't wear
Sure.
up to school. So stupid.
You know, evolves
No
are like
colored
what level
shoelaces, apparently
37.
It was a sign of gang affiliation.
They evolved to level
No toe shoes,
37.
It looked too much like you were wearing only socks.
I'm
They
going
eating
swing.
outside the cafeteria. This was to reduce litter in the hallways. But our school cafeteria could only fit 100-ish people, so everyone ignored it. They
Hit,
tried
please, hit,
enforcing
hit, hit,
it
hit.
by guarding the cafeteria doors so those buying
Thank
lunch
you.
couldn't leave. But then people just stopped buying school lunch. They boys were not allowed to have doors on our stalls. We had a brick wall about 4 feet high between toilets with nothing in front. They said boys would ruin them. No one was allowed to have or say the word drive pepper because it was the
Another
password to a
Scraggy.
shared browser's account the administration
Now you just get
found out about.
full schedule.
I
Went
need
to
a
a
Darman.
Catholic school where there was a big white
You
line
could get
painted
one, 'cause
across
I'm
the
not using it.
schoolyard, and during recess boys played
I don't
on
think
one
there's better
side
flag
and
type.
girls on
I
the
don't really-
other. We
what
were
else
not
beats
allowed
up?
to intermingle
What else
during
beats?
recess, even though we weren't separated during class or lunch. I'm a guy and all my friends were girls, so we used to stand at the line and talk. Go in trouble many times for that. Also in high school, post-Columbine, we weren't allowed to carry backpacks around the school. We had to leave
I
them
need
in our
earthquake.
lockers and carry our heavy Aztec
Plus,
swords around.
Sandag's
Well,
gonna
three
be
of them.
useful in the next
No
round.
mechanical pencils or any pens that click. Teachers found that crap annoying. No peeing outside the toilet or urinal. Common decency, but if you're caught, you would get a call to your parents. The rule isn't stupid. It's actually really good. But the
Ah,
people
I already
who
have a psychic
targeted
type.
it are
I don't need
zero
Darmanitan.
tolerance policy. It's in nearly
What do you mean
every school.
Darmanitan?
I haven't had any
I don't need it.
encounters, but
Why
it
don't
does
you need it?
strike people
Darmanitan's a
off.
fire type.
Imagine getting beat up and getting punished for being beat up because you happened to be involved, even
Grass,
though you did nothing.
Psychic and
It's
Dark
a
are
bit of a
super
rule.
effective against bug.
No Simpsons
Okay.
anything. This was when it
And he's a
premiered,
bug type,
and
Jim,
there
right?
was this national scare
Yes.
that Bart was a bad
Yeah.
influence. There were two popular
So
Bart
you don't think
shirts
it's
that
gonna
were
be
banned.
easier with
One
him?
that said, "I'm Bart
Because he's, you know, a
Simpson.
fire
Who
type.
the hell are you?"
I already have a psychic
And
type.
another
They're
that
super
said, "Bart
effective.
Simpson."
Against
We were
Bug?
super and proud of it.
Yeah.
Psychic types are
Eventually
weak
evolved
against
into
Bug.
banning all Simpsons shirts, school supplies,
Unless there's like a
stickers,
half poison type.
etc. After some of the teachers started watching the show,
This battle's gonna be a bitch for me
in second
because
grade,
none of my Pokemon are
only one
effective.
boy and one girl were allowed to go to the bathroom at a time. I had to
Oh, I already have a flying type.
that I was shaking, and this kid took a stupid amount of time to get back. He finally came back, and I had to wait in a line to his desk, and he finally said I could go. Mad myself on the way there. Frick you, Mr. Bearish. Girls were not supposed to hold hands or else they would turn lesbian.
Mm.
Hair couldn't be extreme. Colored or pastel lobes for guys as it would be considered a distraction to
You know what the
others.
best bird
I
type
had
is?
long hair past
That
my
one.
shoulders.
The best starter
best-
type?
Would not cut it. Was a nicer lot. It's a
Star
silly
Raptor.
thing to get
Hands
detention
down.
for.
Star Raptor.
Kids don't go to school
Okay.
to be told how to
best
dress
comic
and
bird?
how they should look.
Star Raptor.
I remember how much of an impact the Breakfast Club
It would have
movie
been
had on me in
Talonflame,
my
but
junior
Talonflame
high
got nerfed
days.
to the wall, so.
In middle school, we weren't allowed to chew gum.
We're talking
I was
aesthetics
caught
and everything.
and had to write a
Aesthetics and everything.
2,000 word report on the history of pizza. I wrote that damn report and my teacher forgot and never asked for it. No balls over the diameter of 1.4 feet. My school was weirdly accurate. We still brought in footballs. No balls over 1 foot. Brought in smaller footballs. No balls over 10 centimeters. Brought in
I might
tennis
just
balls.
bring a
No
Darmanican just to
balls
make
over
this
5
battle,
cans.
I mean this gym
12
easier,
hit the
and then
windows
forget
with
about it
our dad's
later.
golf balls. Eventually got
Actually, that's
removed due to
exactly
the
what I'm gonna
fact
do.
that the word ball could be
You can have it. I don't really
misinterpreted.
care.
Question mark,
You
question
don't-
mark,
But I'm not
question
gonna
mark,
use it.
question mark, question mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, exclamation mark, question mark, exclamation mark. At any point you may not talk during lunch, and may not laugh at large stools in the bathroom. I crap you not. Excuse the pun. My middle school banned hugs, at least. They banned front hugs. The rule was against chest-to-chest contact. Regardless of context or gender, no chest bumps after a game. Several girls got in trouble for hugging their female friends goodbye after school. It was a strange place. Non-American here. We need to pay fine when we don't speak English in school. In every class, class leader used to note down student names who ever speak their native language other than English. This rule went on for 2 years, and then they finally removed it. When I was in high school, taking my second year of photography class, everyone was called into the auditorium for an assembly. It was to announce that cameras were no longer allowed to be used on campus due to privacy issues. This was about 2 weeks after the school had installed security cameras everywhere in the school. No
They ain't
solid
do
red,
shit.
blue, and towards the end of high school, no purple either. God forbid you wear more than one item with the same color. Needing to wait 10 minutes before and after classes had started to use the restroom. My adolescent body with developing Crohn's disease did not take kindly to this rule and got into fights with the bathroom monitor often. Someone who would make sure nobody was in the bathroom for too long doing drugs, having sex, other things of the sort. Thankfully the principal had a heart of gold and gave me a special pass to use his personal private bathroom, which was so nice and clean. In a high school of 5,000 teenagers, being able to poop in peace at the rate you go with Crohn's disease made my life somewhat less cramped.
Oh my god, stop flinching.
Unintended. Junior high was riddled with stupid rules. Most of them had to do with our general appearance. One time I got sent home because my pants weren't the correct shade of blue to match the ugly ass uniform. The principal had to drive me home so I could change pants. Wasted valuable hours of my school day and education just because of a color. In middle school, had a stupid as all hell one-way hallway system where students could only walk in the halls one direction. Made me late twice actually, since my class was the first one behind the exit door, but forced to go in
1164
the entrance
EXP.
door. Was enforced even when halls were empty. One stick in the mud teacher threatened to write me up if I questioned the rule. You have to ask permission to have a drink. This rule got ignored when I was in year 10. But I still remember one teacher just screaming at me for taking a sip of water on a hot day. I was in the first grade. We only had one recess, and it was in the late afternoon. We had to walk in a straight line to the playground. Stand in the playground yard in a straight line quietly, while the two teachers who pulled playground duty lead us through some basic exercises. Here is the problem. We are first graders. It's late afternoon. And you honestly expect us to stand there on a playground after an entire day of sitting in class at our desk doing work, and listening to instructions and only having one break, lunch, and do basic exercises, while standing on a freaking playground? I'm a sadist and this school taught me how to do it well. And when we wouldn't properly do what we were told, the basic exercises continued. Meaning less time playing and burning energy, and having just a little bit of fun during the day. Sometime in January something happened, and we royally mad off those two teachers. So when they pulled recess duty there was no exercising and playing. No, we had to stand in line for the entire recess period. So about twice a week for the remainder of the school year. This school taught me sadism. Taught me well. When I was in middle school that god-awful Shrek is Life Shrek is Life video came out, and the student council wanted to have a Shrek Spirit Day because of it. So the school banned Shrek and anyone who talked about it got a detention. Girls couldn't wear tank tops because showing armpits wasn't allowed, but guys could wear wife beaters. Made no sense. No chains on wallets back in the day, when chained wallets were the thing. So dudes replaced their chains with pearl necklaces as an futu admin. No black lipstick allowed. Oh, and they were really concerned about starter jackets and gang activity. This was a small farm town of like 700. Total overreaction. Also most high schools allow you to attend a shorter day.
I have
if you
20
met your
alternate
graduation
accounts.
But we had to sit all day and sometimes that meant having 2-3 study halls if we had already met requirements. Such a waste of time. School mandated haircuts.
Hey, this is why I wanted Moxie.
Halfway through 8th grade they decided to ban all beverages including water from use by 8th graders. A couple of kids brought alcohol in a water bottle to school, and they decided the best option was no liquids at all. We couldn't even bring in sealed beverages, or unopened cans, because they could have been tampered with. Clear or mesh backpacks only. This was from 1st grade through high school in the late 90s to early 2000s. We also had to wear a safety vest as our bathroom pass in high school. It was such a joke that the first year the rule was introduced. Our yearbooks were a giant safety vest on the outside. Honestly, the thought of a shared unisex safety vest for bathroom visits still grosses me out as I know those things were never washed properly.
I never had to do that.
In primary school, we weren't allowed to put our rubbish from our lunches in the bin. I distinctly remember being in an assembly where the head teacher said your lunchbox is your bin. I mean, did she think the bins were for decoration? So stupid. The boys weren't allowed to wear shorts at my middle school, but the girls could wear culottes, basically shorts with a fancy name. One day about 100 boys came to school wearing culottes. The man had it stuck to him hard that day. Every single year students had to fight for their right to leave school during the lunch break. So when last year's 9th grade had managed to get allowed to leave during lunch break, this year's 9th grade had to also again fight for it. Stupid parents. Backpacks weren't allowed to be worn during the school day in middle school. It was the dumbest thing, since you wear your backpack everywhere in high school and college. No long hair for boys. Frick you. I'm growing mine, and I will not cut it, because you're a bald loser of a director. In my elementary school, my teacher made a rule after the first quarter where
Wesley's Moxie.
in cursive you would automatically fail, no matter how much you didn't how well. The worst part is that we didn't know how to write cursive, and we were still learning it. No freaking in the hallway. Well, it's more like lover making an any.
Yes, I'm definitely gonna
areas
need a
are strictly
Darmanitan. I mean a
prohibited and will
Darumaka.
be heavily punished.
Cause
In middle
this
school,
gym,
the dress code
my
dictated
Pokemon will
you
get
had to
bodied.
tuck your crap in, which might not be a big thing, but they took it so seriously. I think their reasoning was it was more.
I'm gonna give the
professional,
XP
I
share to
guess. It was never
Sandile.
really explained.
Wait, where
They
did you
were
get XP
handing
share?
out detentions for this
I
crap
told you
left
the
and
battle
right.
tower.
I
In
don't know that.
elementary school,
Okay,
when
turn on
we
your
climbed
screen.
up at the water fountain after recess, a teacher would be standing next to us and counting 1, 2, 3 times up. They had a bullcrap 3-second rule at the water fountain.
Go down.
No shorts for guys in high school. Girls could wear skirts.
Go to where the
Even
Pokemon Center
ministers.
is. I mean, go
But
right.
so much as a calf showing on a guy, and he was sent home or had to change.
I think it's that tower right there.
Apparently, guys
Try to
showing
enter
leg
that.
was going to be
Can you enter it?
that girls
No, no,
would
no,
each
no,
have
no,
a
no,
leg
no,
and
no,
pull
no,
out
no,
that
no.
foot for a ride right in
Don't
the
enter that
middle of
one.
the hall or something. Oh, and the miniskirts. No attempt was made to regulate their length until one girl, daughter of a male teacher, no less, came in with one that showed the crotch of her panties while she was standing up. She displayed
Okay,
a
that
pretty
one.
clear camel toe, no less, but no shorts even at the knee for guys. Our school banned black socks. It was a public high school in a predominantly poor neighborhood, so the parents didn't give a crap and bought whatever socks were cheapest or didn't have the money to buy all
You can see like
brand
an
new
old
socks
guy
again.
in the
It
middle
got
of
to
the
a
building.
point
That's
where
him.
we'd have whole school assemblies on it, and the teachers threatening to suspend kids from school for wearing black socks. Be in class by 8:55, or go to OC for first period. First period is until 11 a.m. In middle school, we weren't
They
allowed
use-
to talk at lunch
they don't
or
have a
else we would
strict
get
type,
put up on
so-
the wall and get handed a detention, like a clean version of hell.
Damn, Smell's not getting
No
any
ballpoint pens.
EXP.
A student at a different school
'Cause everyone's
slid down the banister on some stairs
not
and got seriously
useful against
injured.
Smell.
As a result, all students were banned from using one of the 5 staircases at my school. So we could all die on this one staircase, but the other 4 were completely safe. No pointy balls allowed. So basically no footballs. Also no baseball bats allowed. So we had to ball up our fists and hit the tennis ball with our hands. It sucked in the winter, but we made it work. I remember that once a teacher yelled at me for walking fast on the hallway. Like, those kids over there block all the path playing with Kendamus. In the bathroom 3 guys fight, and in that classroom they play crappy music loudly but somehow I'm the problem. I went to a primarily white high school. There was almost no gang problems or race problems. We had probably 20 black kids out of 500. One rather popular black student/athlete, who later played in THR NFL for 10 years, was the only kid in school to wear a do-rag. For no reason they started a no do-rag or bandana policy. This student clearly felt singled out and decided to test the administration's limits and wore his do-rag anyway. He
I don't know
was
why I did that.
confronted by the principal and suspended the day before the first district football game of his senior year. There is a parking lot, not on school grounds overlooking our football field, that you can see from the stands. He watched the game with his do-rag from that parking lot. Every time we scored we made sure we pointed to him to draw attention to the fact he was watching the game from a distance. The whole student body wore white t-shirts wrapped around their heads with free ad% and $sign written on it with Sharpie. In my high school you can't play cards, unless it's since playing cards are used for gambling. My best friend got detention for clapping, even though a lot of other people were clapping, because he disturbed the lunch period and supposedly
fucking
started
know.
it all even though he didn't. You can't sing happy birthday in the cafeteria. You can't do a proposal on school grounds.
He said what?
Boots were banned because they promoted
I want the
theft and
EXP.
antisocial behavior. I wore steel-toe-capped boots for the entire time I was there because I found them more comfortable than shoes, and no one noticed. Well, except the bully who got
Did you get the
boxed
bike?
in the crotch because I'd had enough of his crap. He noticed. Boys had to have short hair as long hair was a distraction. I decided to fuck that police and grow mine out. That caused a few arguments. We were allowed to wear our own coats over the top of our uniforms when going to slash from school, just so long as they were black and conformed to certain styles. No one paid any attention as it was completely unenforceable. In 6th form, girls were allowed to wear whatever they wanted to. Boys still had to wear a shirt and tie selected from a very small range of colors. When we complained about the double standards, the school graciously allowed us to select 2 additional colors. The school's excuses for all of this was to prevent bullying and prepare us for the workplace. Kids just found other
Oh, so you're trying
reasons
to copy
bully
me
each
now?
other,
Okay.
and I've never
No,
had a
I
job
didn't even
that required a 3-piece suit.
It's okay, you can copy me.
Wasn't allowed to date my classmates.
I'm kidding.
Carrot, carrot,
I can't
carrot,
say
carrot,
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 W-A-S, carrot, 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 HOMESCHOOLED. You are not allowed to have fake pockets. For no reason. Out of the blue, just a new rule. In homeroom, the teacher would check to see if you have any fake pockets. The rule is no longer enforced, but a teacher still have the power to enforce it. Then the same school banned Spanish one day. It was a detention if someone said a Spanish word. At my school, teachers can give you demerits for what they deem bad, which lead to one teacher giving out 2 demerits. 4 demerits is a detention for any made-up words. The reasoning was that we would sometimes substitute made-up words for our swears.
What are you doing now?
So someone would
I'm
say, "What
doing
the
the battle
flipper?" Or
thing.
just say a random sound.
And I
salad
forgot how to
word.
get the bike.
Mandatory attendance. A great college prof, on the first day of class, put to me/us like this: if you're bright enough to pass this class without attending lectures, why should I punish you for that? My 5th grade teacher hated the smell of mint or fruity things. Had a strong sense of smell. When
Oh
it
my
came to
God.
it, one day I was eating some Jolly Ranchers my buddy gave me, and while in the middle of taking a test, she started sniffing and walking around the class. When she got to me, she knew, put her hand down just under my chin, and actually made me spit them into her hand. What? Leading to her implementing a rule for no types of candy in class, or that fruity smelling kids perfume for the girls. No jerking off in class. Such bullcrap. The bell doesn't dismiss you, the teacher does. The farther down in this thread I go, the more hopeless she'll seem. On the first day of class, my 7th grade writing teacher demanded that we all buy comfortable pens. On the second day of class, she went desk to desk sampling our choices. Several students, myself included, experienced awkward embarrassment when she slammed down our pathetic pens and shouted nope. In elementary school, kindergarten through 4th grade, we had this rule. When we went to lunch, there were 2 cups on the table, stacked on top of each other. One was red and one was green. When lunch started, the red cup was on top and we weren't allowed to talk. Then, 5 minutes before lunch ended, they would switch it to green and finally allow us to talk to each other. A few come to mind. At the end of lunch break, you had to line up in silence on the playground, in all weather, and be registered before heading into class. Previously we just headed to class and got registered there. Doesn't sound too bad on paper. Maybe uncomfortable during winter, but not too bad surely? Well, our school had a bit of a seagull problem. As soon
What?
as that bell went and everyone lined up,
You
a
said
massive swarm of seagulls descended from the rooftops to eat all the food people
Yes,
had
I'm doing the
brought.
battle tower.
Again, may not sound too bad,
Oh,
but as
you gotta
anyone who
complete.
has met a seagull will know, they are vindictive. Flying
That's
So what
also-
happens once I complete this
producing
whole?
machines. And the
You
ones
get the
at our
experience
school
chair.
enjoyed nothing more than swooping down over a line of students, unleashing their guts, and seeing how many of us they could hit in a single run. And to make matters worse, if you got crap on, you would be sent inside to clean up. So now you had to walk past half the school covered in bird crap as everyone smirked at you. Hardly a day went by without someone taking the walk of shame to the school office. This went on for a whole school year, before being quietly dropped the next year. Then they introduced a new uniform policy where, for reasons not even the head teacher could explain, people in their first year had to wear a distinctively different, brightly colored tie compared to rest of the school. Not only did this mean you had to buy a new tie after your first year, it also made you stick out like a sore thumb compared to anyone else. As if trying to fit in at a new school wasn't hard enough, you now had a big "I'm new here" sign around your neck. This was again quietly dropped after a single year. And because everyone loves zero tolerance rules in these threads, zero tolerance on just about any physical contact, I'm not making this up. This was dropped very rapidly after a number of stupid incidents. The stupidest being, someone shoved my brother over. He knocked into someone, didn't knock them over, or even make them stumble, just bumped into them on his way towards the ground, and the
I need
teachers
that
began
damn
to
bike.
have a go at him for bumping into the person, before he even finished
Oh, do you not
picking
get the bike?
himself up. Girls
Oh.
could have piercings but guys couldn't. Did it anyway. It was a very mediocre school. In high school you were not allowed to use the football field, unless you were on the football team. That meant that, if gym class wants to be held outside, the only thing we were allowed to do is run around the outside of the field. The reason they gave was they spent $1.5 million to renovate the field, and that was reserved for only the football team. Got to love Catholic school. Girls weren't allowed to wear skirts or dresses, not even an official rule. Our math teacher decided that for us. No gloves, because only gang members wear gloves. It's freezing cold and your gloves are bright pink. Take them off before someone thinks you're a member of the notorious Pink Gloves gang. My school just put this into place. You can't eat on the floor at lunchtime, even if there is limited space with the 1,200 plus students. In high school we have the whole, if you're late then you get a detention thing. Lot of random absences. Not mine, but for one of my kids. And it comes as a pair. In 3rd grade, all the kids loved to play soccer at recess. One day, a kid went for a header, missed, and got a bloody nose. Not broken, just a little bloodied. So they instituted a no soccer rule. My son loves soccer, and was distraught. To teach him a little social activism, I suggested he write up a petition. I helped him with the wording, and told him to get signatures outside of normal class hours, before school started in the morning, at recess, lunch, etc. He was reprimanded, and had the petition taken away. The teacher even told me he was not doing it during class. And
All of a
was
sudden,
being
there's not a
disruptive,
fucking
and they instituted
Darumaka.
a no petitions rule. Thanks, Ms. Davis. Way to teach the kids to just lie down and take it. Went to a French school and our code of conduct said we weren't allowed to speak, write, or think in anything but French, except in English, Spanish etc.
Finally.
classes. No Oakland Raiders attire or black and gray colored clothing. Reason was because those are the colors of one of the largest gangs in Chicago. Of course, living in an entirely white rich suburb hours north of the south side of Chicago was surely a huge risk of gang association. We had these self-study moments when no class fitted our schedule, so we had an hour off. The rules stipulated that no electronically amplified music, MP3 players, were allowed. They forgot, however, how creative seniors with nothing to do can get, so a bunch of us just brought in acoustic guitars and played around. The teacher overseeing us was chill about it as we didn't break any rules. The headmaster on the other hand hated it, but changed it, so that we could join in for extra PE, if we wanted to, so at least we had that. My middle school had a rule: if you were sent to the office for misbehavior, you remained in the office for the rest of the day. Knowing this, my first period teacher found every excuse to send me to the office. I missed all of my lessons and nearly failed 7th grade. Uniform. Always uniform. Girls weren't allowed to wear trousers or shorts, only skirts and dresses. As a tomboy, I was not
The
impressed.
fuck was that noise?
My school put in a policy about pets.
It was a yawn?
And it says,
Okay.
pet/companion
That's how you yawn?
animals must be leashed or confined to a crate or kennel when on the campus.
Why?
They have to be confined to a cage all day, where the dorm student goes to school.
Why not?
Which is pretty sad. No running in the hallways. Our school was an open space type. 3 times and you go to a guidance counselor to get evaluated for ADD. This just happened to me yesterday on a college campus. I was waiting in line to get a smoothie in the dining hall. Workers kept yelling at students
I know where all them
if
are.
they weren't in a single file line. I guess standing by your friend is against the line rules. Everyone thought it was ridiculous. I mean, we are adults, not children.
What do you mean watch videos?
When I was in grade 8, we had to write our homework in our agendas, and if a parent didn't sign it, that would result in a detention. At my high school, a girl ran in a science
You played the game
class,
before.
dropped
How's it
class,
blind?
slipped, and had her Achilles tendon cut.
So you
Her
never played.
parents sued the school
Oh,
and
I
it's
played
now
this.
the strict policy to not wear anything that exposes your Achilles tendon.
Hey, after this gym right here.
How bad was your roommate? The worst roommate I had was sophomore year of college. He was randomly assigned after I had been given a double with no roommate. At first he seemed fine, but it got worse and creepier throughout the year. The first problem was that he was afraid of showering in our suite shower. He would wait until he went home on the weekends to shower. Couple this with the fact that he wasn't the smallest person and that he wore the same black sweatpants and black sweatshirt every day, and you can see why this would be a problem. The same thing with shoes and no socks, which he stored
sick of
in
all
the
these
common
elemental
living room
monkeys.
beneath the couch. The second problem developed about halfway through the semester. He wore a black robe in the morning while he was getting ready for class. When he went to pee, he would drape the robe off of himself onto the floor and then pee. This resulted in pee splatter, combined with whatever was already on the floor, all over his robe. Again, coupled with the lack of washing the robe received, you can see why this would be an issue. As if the pee-soaked, sweat-covered stench of clothing was not enough, the third problem developed near the end of the semester. I had recently started seeing a Sutermate's friend and she routinely stayed over with me when I could get her to overlook the smell. On no less than 3 separate occasions I woke up to find him standing in the middle of the room, staring at us and breathing heavily. It took until the third incident before the RA, who was also my Sutermate, called for an intervention for the person's hygiene and overall creepiness of masturbating to my girlfriend and I sleeping. Needless to say, he was placed into another suite the next semester and I once again had the room to myself. Shudder. My roommate borrowed my car for 8 months. It was supposed to be 2 months,
flashed me,
but
oh
she
my
never
God.
saved for her own car. If I took my car back, she
It was
said
beautiful.
she'd lose her job and run out on the lease and possibly lose custody of her kid, leaving me with $1,100 a month. I still haven't gotten my car back because it
Mel,
was
can you
impounded
please
when
look
she
up how
was
to get this
arrested for
damn bike?
possession while driving my car to work. Apparently her boyfriend's house. She spent the weekend in jail. I spent the weekend watching
not how
her
you get-
kid
what
wondering
you're doing in the
what
battle
heck
tower?
happened. Because my car is evidence
Oh.
I'm not getting it back and may be charged for its towing disposal. She of course lost her
I
job
beat
after
it.
that, and is now sitting at home smoking pot and not doing a dang thing. We also have roaches because she doesn't do her dishes. I can't wait for this lease to be up.
Pick
You
that
can get out
asshole.
of your lease now. If you describe what happened to your landlord, they can't legally hold you on the lease with a person who is a danger to you. I had a roommate who would leave
Mel's a
enema
menace to
packages on the
society.
bathroom sink that we
Oh,
shared,
yeah.
and the used enemas just sitting on the very top of the
Black
trash
people
can.
left and right.
Not only that,
with
but he
my-
decided he also
my-
never once needed to flush the toilet. I wish I was making this up. When I was 19, I moved out of my parents' house with my 18-year-old girlfriend. Long story short, her sister gets kicked out of her house and moves in with us. The sister has a boyfriend who lives 45
Brianna, how you
minutes
doing?
away. So when he was in town, he stayed with her, us.
You said what?
Eventually, he was there all the time. I break up with my girl
Say
and
that
she
again?
moves out. Soon after,
Say
her
it
sister
again.
breaks up with the other guy, and the
Why
sister
say
moves
nothing?
out. So this dude just sorta ended up being my roommate. He didn't have a car or a job, and told me that everyone
I'm
was
doing
getting
well.
evicted out of the house he lived in. That was 45 minutes
Yes, I am.
away. and
I'm
he
having
kinda
fun.
hung out with my friends and
I made a new
so
overlay.
I figured he could stay till he
kinda
figured
made it.
something out. I got him a job where I worked.
I adjusted it.
He came with me to work for the first week or so, but then
Your face
after
is
that he
building overlay.
basically quit.
I know.
He has
Stop-
literally no
stop
money,
texting in the
so
chat.
he's eating my food while I'm at work. He can't
I
pay to
do
do
what I
his
want.
laundry, so he's stealing my dirty socks and underwear out of my bedroom after his got too nasty. After nearly a month, I told him he had to go. After he moved, I went into the bedroom he stayed in, and it smelled like a homeless person
I like
took
a
a crap on the
nasty,
floor.
nasty.
He had
I like a
smeared
nasty,
deodorant on the
nasty.
walls to try and mask the smell. There were dirty socks on the floor that were so yellow and crusty and they could stand up by themselves. The sad
Ew.
part is that he had 2 different girls and thereafter his girl dumped him. In my senior year, I made the mistake of
Hey, what are
agreeing
you
to
doing?
room with two
Me?
solid dickheads.
Yeah.
They partied
I'm trying to
literally
get to the
every
gym.
night. My third roommate, good friend of mine, bailed after a couple weeks of living with them to be in raw because he couldn't take waking up in the morning to an absolutely trashed apartment. They liked to make bacon every single morning. Every day that I went to class, I absolutely reeked of it. That might sound cool, but it gets old fast. Trust me. My best story? They like to do the power hour.
Unlike
You
a
know,
nasty.
60 shots of beer in 60 minutes. They tried once with whiskey, at 10 in the morning. I came home from class and the oven glass was shattered and they were passed out on the living room floor. Apparently they got through 34 minutes, got
Bro, it's
into a
not fair.
fight,
Why
and
does
one of them
Sharon
put
get
the other
to
one's head through the oven.
fight the
Good
gym leader, but we
times.
can't?
I once lived with a roommate
That's
who liked
fucking
potato
sexist.
pancakes. She made a big batch of potato pancakes once and left them out for 3 months. We were in a stalemate over who would clean the kitchen first. Bastards turned purple and started growing tendrils towards
If
the
I the
electrical
gym.
outlets to take over the world. I caved. You missed our free potatoes.
Whoever plays Pokemon for the story is lying.
Which one? The one who quit his main source of income with no plan on replacing his job and to this day still owes me 3k in back rent? The one who acted like a jealous spouse anytime I hung out with my girlfriend or any other friends? I literally came home late one night to him, cross-armed on the couch angrily watching TV, and when I walked up he said, "And where have you been all night?" No joke. The one who became a Jehovah's Witness and would constantly trying to preach to me. It was that. Or he'd get S-faced and try to fight me. The one who insisted on having his ferrets there at the house. However, he was rarely home and the cage would go weeks without being cleaned.
I'm
As with anyone
saying,
who has been in a house
I'm
with
saying
ferrets will
that
tell you, the smell is
Pokemon
only
stories
slightly more
are
pleasing
pretty
than a burnt
lackluster.
corpse.
It depends on
I
which
was
story you're
woken
talking
up at
about.
5:30 a.m. one morning to find my flat
I
being
only play.
raided by the
I
police
mostly
and
play
my
Pokemon for
roommate
the
being
gameplay,
arrested.
not for the
Turns out
fucking
he was
story.
a offer. Ding
Bro,
ding
like
ding,
a
tell him
gameplay.
what he's one Johnny.
Pokemon Red.
I had a roommate that was too lazy to
Oh,
get
that's why you don't
toilet
have Pokemon
paper
Sword and
out of
Shield.
the hall closet. So, he just proceeded to wipe his butt on the
Hey,
shower
why you have to
curtain
hit me
for a
like
few
that?
weeks.
Like, no.
When my
This
wife
you like
was
the
a
story so
freshman in
fucking much.
college,
Buy Pokemon
she
Sword and
shared a
Shield.
suite with a girl who had some difficulties adjusting to life on her own. The day after moving in, the girl raised her bed up to the highest level, intended to allow more space for dresses storage, and made a fort of some sorts. She lived under her bed for 2 whole semesters, only leaving for class, food, bathroom, etc. She would also routinely wash her clothing in the dorm washing machines, but take the load of wet clothes back up to her room to dry them. She hung them around the walls with clothespins and turned the heat up on high. Our college was in Florida and as a result the heat moisture turned the room into a swamp. I have no idea how people like that
What are
make
you
it to
doing in
America.
my swamp?
Come on, the fourth thing sounds awesome. Except the never leaving it part is obviously weird, but I would want a bed fort to sleep in. My old
heal?
roommate would Febreze
Hold up.
himself instead of showering. He wouldn't clean his room so the
Let me
floor was
save, let me
covered in
save.
tissues, and he did laundry once in the 6 months he lived with me. He would be about not getting the parking pass, and when I would give it to him he would go out of town for 4 or 5 days. And the icing on the cake was when he moved out he called the power company to say he was leaving and got the power shut off on me. I had to pay $75 to get it turned back on. At one point I had 2 roommates. One owned a bird and the other one hated the bird. At one
Want
point
a
the first
bike?
roommate noticed his bird's
I want a
feathers
bike.
didn't look healthy. We were suspicious but never knew for sure. Finally we decided to install a motion camera and record his bird for a full day. After reviewing the
That was a
recording we
bird.
noticed the roommate who hated the bird was
Sorry?
spraying it with a
That was a
kitchen
bird.
cleaner and was trying to poison the bird to death.
The drug.
As soon as we saw it we called him to come pick up his
The good
stuff
drug?
and that he would find it on the front lawn. We changed
Gas?
the locks and
Okay.
never spoke to him again. The bird made a full recovery. Yay for the full recovery of the bird.
The bird
I
is
had a
work.
roommate who developed an addiction to H while I was living with him. Some of my crap went missing, so I put a lock on my door. One day I came home only to realize I didn't have the key with me, so I set about trying to pick the lock. He sees me trying to get into my room, and offers to help me out by showing me how he can open the door by slipping his butterfly knife in between the trim and the door jamb, popping open the lock. So here I am, having just watched my junkie roommate break into my room with a knife that he's still holding. Thanks. So I called up a buddy who does MMA and doesn't afraid of anybody to stay the night. The whole night my roommate was pacing in his room, having realized his mistake, and flipping his butterfly knife
I'm like,
out.
I'm nasty,
The next
nasty.
day, I went to get a U-Haul while MMA stayed behind to watch my crap, and I moved all of my valuable crap out. Computers, clothes, stereo, CDs, etc. Then I told the landlord what happened. We still had 3 months to go on the lease, which she released me from as long as I promised not to call the cops. Fair trade, but I still had a bunch of my crap in there. I made an arrangement with my roommate for him to be gone while I got the rest of my stuff, which he thankfully honored. However, when I got there, he completely trashed the apartment. Not just my stuff, but his stuff too. He dumped the litter box into the tub and ran the faucet. The clay-based litter completely clogged the drain. I later heard from the landlord that they had to replace the whole trap, which involved taking the tub out. It was his cat, BTW. He also wrote on the walls in permanent marker, not just in our apartment, but also on
How the
all
fuck did you
stair
get
landings.
lost?
It was either Nine Inch Nails or Marilyn Manson lyrics, or messages written in binary. 000000001 equals A. 000000010 equals B, etc. This was around the
Really
time
not
the
funny.
first Matrix
You
came
what?
out, so I
Everything
don't know if he
urban
thought he was
and you
Neo or
and you have.
what. The one thing I'll
What are you
always
talking
freaking
about?
hate this kid for though is that as I was rushing to get my important crap out,
Yes.
I forgot one hard drive.
Oh my
I had
god.
moved it as I was taking everything apart, and just forgot it.
Moxie?
That hard drive had a bunch of
Sandai with
original
Moxie.
music on it. This
I'm gonna
freaking
frag you
butthole
with
took it
Moxie.
out of the enclosure, took
That's
one
not
of the
fair,
speakers
you
out of his
fucking
subwoofer
lucky
that
ass.
he trashed, and put it on top of that hard drive. Freaking
Know
degassed
how you
it.
exchange
It was
your
my own fault for not
I do
backing it up before CDRs
You
were
did the
everywhere and
opposite.
cheap, and leaving it behind. But man,
cutscene.
anyway, TL.
That's so
DR,
stupid.
My junkie roommate broke into my locked room in front of me, confirming my suspicions
I
that he
have
had been stealing.
Espion, I have
moved out the next day, and
Patel,
when
I got
came back to get the
Sandile,
rest
I
of my
have
crap, I found he had
what's
trashed
it
the
called?
apartment.
Time Pole.
I live with 4 other guys. All of them are allergic to
That's
housework of
basically-
any kind. Pots and pans sit 4 weeks on
I don't
ends
count
in
the
kitchen,
Darumaka because I'm just
despite
using
the fact that
Darumaka
we have a
for
dishwasher.
this
When
one
I
gym.
do a load of dishes, they are immediately used up by my lazy but
You like
roommates,
the new Pokemon,
who
then?
of course fail to reload
Yeah, like
the
how you
washer.
use my-
Garbage bags do not go in the garbage. They sit in the common area.
I was kidding, I was
attracting
kidding.
masses of black flies
I was kidding.
on the floor until I freak out and
I didn't
ask to
mean
get
it.
them moved to the garage.
Isn't
They
definitely-
sit in there until I take out the
It's definitely-
garbage.
You know
My
where to
roommate
go.
is a mom who comes by once every few months and attempts to put a dent in the mess that is our house. This poor woman scrapes the crust off of our kitchen counter, unclogs the
How do we find
sinks,
out?
only for it all to return to the unhygienic entropy that classifies our house in the space of 3 days.
I want to replace him
The
with
downstairs
Litwick.
toilet has been plugged for 6 months. The guilty party is too lazy to do anything about it, and no one else gives a crap. TL. DR. I used to think myself a tolerant person, until I found the exact quantity of spoiled food, splitting garbage bags, and mold it took to turn me into a simmering bull of rage with
I really
a
want a
quadruple
Chandelure.
homicide in my near future.
But
My
Lit-
roommate
training
dumped cow
Litwick's
blood
gonna be
into
a pain in
bathtub
the
and fricked
ass.
his girlfriend in it. He told me it was fake blood and that it was for a photo shoot he was doing for class. My roommate used to take dumps with the door open, so he could play Madden with the wireless controller. He was a multitasker. Would let
A
dirty
Yaga
dishes pile up in
berry.
the kitchen. But here's the punchline. When I finally had enough of them and decided to do them myself,
I have the
found
EXP share,
multiple
yeah.
used
I just
condoms
got it.
between the layers of dishes. Tourette's
But still, though,
syndrome.
I actually want to
Easily
use my
the ugliest
Pokemon.
human being I had ever seen, but would regularly bring home girls that were easily out of my league. It was like watching the Elephant Man shack up with Mila Kunis. Totally depressing.
Mila Kunis.
And I still, to this day, have no idea how he did it. Crashed a party I was throwing for a bunch of foreign exchange students. Saw 2 hot French girls sitting on the floor kissing each other and promptly ran upstairs, only to return shortly thereafter wearing nothing but sweet pants and a string of condoms as a loincloth. Pelvic thrusts were made. Beer was thrown. Everything ended in tears. Oh my god, I just realized all those women he was bringing home were H. This is 10 years later. Jesus freaking Christ. Turns out they were in your league. My freshman year of college I had a Russian roommate named Boris. He had moved here with his family 2 years prior. Now he filled just about every stereotype that you have heard. He was an alcoholic. There would more often than not be a vodka bottle next to our toilet. He would drink it with his cereal. It was incredible. He also was quite into drugs. You
Your
name
what?
it, he did it. He never cleaned anything. His coffee mugs would sit out
He
so
used
long
alcohol
with
for
liquid in them
milk.
that they would get dusty. Dusty coffee. And he
I
spoke
think
in
he's
broken
bargain.
English with that accent.
Ew,
He had
that's so
only
nasty.
one class which he never attended and failed out after one semester. He smelled like an unwiped anus. He had a frick buddy, don't know who would find him attractive, who was polished so I could never understand a word they would say, but she would leave her clothes everywhere. One time they were both showering together when I came home and they had apparently both thrown up in the shower. I thought that they had been taking a bath because the tub was full of water. Turns out it was just their puke clogging the drain. We had quite the discussion after that stunt. He would drink it with his cereal. Frat Luops. Was settling into my first real job and moved into a 3-bedroom house with a couple others. Didn't know them that well but thought they were okay and it was cheap. So, you know, whatever.
Okay, so all
I
my
had a
Pokemon
well-paying
are
job for
starting
a
to become
21
a
YO.
consistent
So
level.
I thought it would be cool to
They're on the
cover some
20s now.
expenses on my own. I paid for internet cable which was not a ton, but I thought it would be nice. Anyway, I have one roommate who doesn't work, sits around all day watching Netflix on my Xbox. Watched it so much that he overheated the thing and the Xbox died. He then borrowed another Xbox from a friend of his, didn't tell me mine had died, then killed his friend's Xbox as well. On top of that, he was disgusting. His girlfriend was always over wearing a cute off t-shirt, letting her underarm Forrest get some fresh air. They'd frick all the time and leave condoms all over our shared bathroom. Dude would never clean anything and I refused to do it. The result was a bathroom turned black and me taking daily trips to my parents to shower. Also, and I don't have any problem with people that take advantages of these programs responsibly, but this guy was on food stamps and housing assistance. He wasn't even looking for work. My living experience with him made me give some credit to Republicans. Remembered, roommates were in bands. Band practice all the fricking time. Wednesday night at 11:30. You need to work tomorrow. Oh, well, we have a gig that was planned 2 months ago that we haven't rehearsed for. Frick that. Then sometimes they would be on the road for a show or whatever, and some other band would be practicing in the fricking living room because my roommate gave out more keys than he did STDs. The more I think about that guy, the more I can't believe I didn't stab his fricking eyes out. You should have called me. Back in 1996 I lived in Palm Beach County and had a roommate I'd met at work because I needed a roommate quickly after returning from school. He never paid his rent, never cleaned, basically never did jack crap. He did get a dog, although we weren't allowed to have one, and he ignored the property manager's demands to get rid of it. So the property manager served us an eviction notice. I think we had a month to get out, but due to my lack of funds, I headed straight into West Palm Beach and tried to get the manager of the Hotel Livernia to rent me a room and let me pay later. It was literally that or the street. Later that week, I got a call from my father stating that the sheriff's deputy had been by looking for me. WTF. Apparently they were trying to serve me a notice to appear for a civil case, because someone had returned to the apartment and completely destroyed it the same day that I'd been out finding a new place to live. Literally everything in the apartment had been destroyed. Classy crap like frick my P-Tillet leaves had been spray painted on walls.
Yeah.
My awesome roommate sat in court denying everything despite witnesses who saw him and 2-3 other people yapped after the eviction. But not me. None of them could say that they'd seen me, or my vehicle. Ultimately, we were found equally responsible for over $4,000 in damages.
They say ukulele?
FML. My dad paid my half, and he died wrongly thinking that I'm a real piece of crap because of that incident. I got my room at the Hotel Livernia, where I learned all kinds of new and interesting lessons from the local sea kids. It comforts me to know I'll never see this guy again, because I harbor a lot of anger toward him and don't know what I'd do. The money and the time lost because of him are one thing. What it did to my relationship with my dad before he died is
why
another
you hate the
matter
puzzles?
entirely.
Or the fact that they take so long to actually enter a
One
fucking
roommate was a
room?
H that brought clients home. Another was a crazed Mormon that used her own crap for art. And the last was an unhygienic, lazy, Vietnamese girl. It may be a little late for this to get noticed, but my freshman year before I transferred, it wasn't one roommate. It was all of them. I lived in an apartment style with 3 others. 2 bedrooms with 2 roommates each.
I hate the honey
I'll
too.
start off with the
Takes
other
like
bedroom.
8 seconds for
One of
to
them
enter
was
it.
straight from Vietnam, and the other was a hardcore Mormon. Let's start with the Mormon. Although relatively sane
They
but
should just take the
highly
honey parts
religiously
out.
judgmental, she was an art major. Her projects were always a little off the wall.
Let
For
them be
them to use
creative.
Kleenexes. One fateful day, a very nice, warm, early spring day, I decided to study out on our mini balcony. Lo and behold, there is a
They should at least
plate
just make it
piled with
faster.
crap. No joke, it was her crap. She crap on a plate and left it on the balcony.
Plus,
to
if you hit
dry
the
after
sides,
use
it doesn't
in
work.
One of her projects.
And like it takes
the
like
one from Vietnam did similar
awkward
to what she
second
described,
for
except she'd throw
actually
her
move
crap
again.
stained blood-drenched TP in the trash can. You can imagine the smell. However, the worst thing that she did was use one of my face washcloths to wipe. Yes,
That's for
wiping
Pokemon,
after
we haven't
she
jump
used the
scared.
bathroom. I go to grab my washcloth, and I could see a weird residue as well as an awful, fetid vagina smell. Yeah, she used my washcloth because the TP roll was out and she didn't want to squeeze it in while traveling the short distance of 3 feet to grab some more out of the cabinet. I
Don't be
saved the
sorry,
best for
but come on.
last. My very own roommate. First night after moving, everyone is getting
Why
ready
did
to
that
go
kill?
to some
Yeah,
party.
quickly.
I find out she's a dominatrix. I thought, weird, okay,
Oh, you're a
shouldn't be
dominatrix.
too bad. As time went on,
But,
however, crap did, in fact, get
Pokemon's
very
running
weird.
out of
She would
ideas!
bring clients home and lock me out of the bedroom. Reason for this is that after her session,
Mel, do you think
Pokemon
Pokemon running
she
out
would
of
sleep
ideas?
with them for a
I'm
bonus,
down in your
making her
Let's be
age. There were several times where she'd steal my pillows to use as leverage for her clients because her bed wasn't firm enough. She'd use kitchen tools as adult
feel like
toys when
Espeon
the
been on, like,
rest of
level
us weren't at
23.
home. And I kid you not, no
5
surface was
years.
left unfricked. She would often admit these things to us while drinking because seriously guys, it's just fricking. You all have twats so you should be used to
Normal
it.
is a rock
The
type,
last
right?
straw came when she brought
Mhm.
one of her Cleveland clients home.
Technically, he
She
should either
recommended
rock
that
and
I should go down the hall.
Okay.
Long story short, took a dump on
Like-
his chest,
like-
wiped it off with one of my towels, and fricked him afterwards using one of my pillows. I transferred. Have never spoken to them again. One of my roommates used to have his girlfriend over constantly. I didn't mind it so much because I really liked her, but she'd always stay overnight sleeping with him in his single bed. It was a bit odd for me at first sharing a room like that.
Oh my
but I got over
God.
it eventually.
Oh.
In Idaho, they used to have danger freaking, which was basically anytime I left the room, they'd have a quick ride and try to be finished before I got back. So maybe 2 or 3 times a week I'd walk in to catch them in the act. There'd be no stopping them at that stage, so I'd go for a walk. One morning I only went to the toilet and was gone no more than 60 seconds. When I came back in, he was flustered and she looked annoyed. Yup, he started and finished in
Oh,
less
fucking
than
God.
60 seconds. I never let him live it down. You are probably the nicest
Hate this
roommate I've
damn joke.
heard about. I
Hate
don't know
this
if I could
kid.
live in constant fear of seeing my roommate's junk. A former roommate became the disciple of a homeless man who claimed to be a Reiki
Where
master and
is
spiritual healer
the
and hid him in
bike?
his
Oh
room
yeah, I
for
know where to get the
several
bike. Never
months.
mind.
He was stealing our food
Not in
and
this
was
city.
basically a waste of
next
a
city.
human being. Next I moved
Wait,
into
you
a
beat
new
him
room,
already?
and the
No,
woman living there
I was just
failed
saying
to
I know where to
inform
get the
me
bike
that
now.
The apartment was infested with
Wait, you
beggars.
haven't beat
She
him?
tried to stick
No,
me
have
with the
you?
lease when she moved to Michigan a month later.
Oh.
Nope. Then there was a kleptomaniac, suicidal,
I'm
pathological
at the
liar
gym
whose
leader. I
bed
had to beat him. I just
clean
went to
up
heal
from
my
our
Pokemon.
bathroom. And the one who claimed she was going to her for a weekend only to call us from PA saying
You're like
she
9
was
to
locked up in
5.
a
I'm
mental
the
hospital
weekend.
against her will. Happened. The roommate who would sneak out to the living room and open all the windows in the middle of the night in the middle of winter because it was stuffy. The roommate who became insistent that I should release my cat into the wild because he was feeling trapped. And on, and on, and on. I live alone now. I nearly forgot how one roommate woke me up when he got in a knife fight with his boyfriend.
What was it
True
gonna- oh.
story. Police and everything. Ah, I remember my first gay knife fight.
You know
Good
who
times.
what Pokemon he lays out
My
with?
roommate was mad I went to a party without him. As I left the party that evening, a car comes flying through the parking lot and I literally had to jump out of the way. It was my roommate. Later, back at the apartment, I attempted to explain how idiotic and drunk he was. He said that I was the bad roommate because I always leave Otterpop plastic on the coffee table. He
Okay.
then proceeded to throw a box of Otterpops, followed by everything else in the freezer, at me, breaking many
He
things in
should
the process.
beat that with a
I eventually
Whirlipede
moved out.
without good RNG.
Last I talked to him was years ago. He was in rehab. I asked for what? He said you name it. TL. DR. Pick up your Otterpop plastic. My housemate held a kitchen knife against my throat after we got into an argument about him smoking inside the house. Props for delivering such a freaked up story in a single, succinct sentence. My first roommate in college, not first roommate ever, was a poultry science major from West Virginia. I was a Comp C,
Okay.
business admin dual major. The first night I brought my boyfriend around, we curled up on the couch to watch TV. The first words out of her mouth when she walked in were, "What the frick is this end doing in our room?" My first dorm experience, I was paired with someone who had the exact opposite sleep schedule of me. This wouldn't have been a problem if she hadn't demanded that I avoid the dorm room when she was sleeping during the day and then stayed up all night trying to do homework with the light on, and sometimes music. She soon began using her nightstand,
Bodied.
leaving me alone, but only for a short while. Eventually she brought men back to the room, but instead of asking me to leave, since this was night and I was sleeping,
If
she
the
would
bug
just
is
sit
half
them on the
poison,
bunk
yes.
bed above me. For some reason, my archaic college had
But
bunk
if it's a
beds.
pure
She
bug, if it's
requested
bug
that
of
I
anything
grab
else,
the
no.
faces of these men and keep their names straight, because I couldn't slip up and have one man find out about the other. Once I messed up and called one by the wrong name, and to punish me, she waited until I went to shower, then invited a bunch of guy friends over to sit in the room and wait for me when I returned in only a towel. I hightailed it out of there. It was like a bad porno waiting to happen. Happy ending, though. She ended up moving out of the dorm and in with a friend of hers down the hall who also kept up the same irregular sleep schedule and man-mongering. My roommate broke into my dad's office and stole all his computers. A few years before we started living together, I moved in and after a few months, realized that the computers had some strange add-in cards that were really expensive and that my dad had. I checked the serial numbers and sure enough, the computers were my dad's. Called the cops, had my B roommate arrested. The worst part was he knew us before, was
Oh my god, stop healing, you
had been
bitch.
to our house for dinner and my dad had even offered to pay for some medical issues he had. Sucker. My roommates never did the dishes, at least not as far as I could tell. I always hand washed my own dishes
Thank you.
and put them away immediately after.
I didn't even need
One
our.
day
Actually,
I
yeah, I
noticed
did.
that
No.
a bowl that had
I
been
lied.
sitting on the counter for some time was filled with water and had plenty
I
of
would.
milk
My ass
floating
would have
in
been
it.
struggling
That was
if I
just an
didn't use
indicator of
Darumaka.
their
But I actually kind of
cleanliness.
do need it.
When one of their mothers came to move out some of her son's stuff, she flipped her crap and emailed
But after
all
this,
of
I'm
the
getting
other
rid of it.
parents to let them know how unsanitary our living conditions were. I moved in January of 2010 and by
Stop
April of
prolonging
that
your
year,
death.
all three of my roommates had either dropped out of
Just
school
let it happen.
or
Just let it
left their
happen.
jobs
Just let it happen.
and moved back home. I had 3 months remaining on my lease and lived basically without any contact from them. Also, all of the utilities were in their names, and they hardly collected any
Get
from
one
me.
shot, bitch. Get one
I
shot it.
lived with my roommate for a year. First of all, he lost his toothbrush about 4 months ago and since then had been using bottles of Listerine alone to wash out his mouth, which still was freaking disgusting. He also
You want my
biked everywhere
Darmanitan?
and would come
Saved my
home
life.
smelling like a construction worker and then he would lay on my couch or even
Okay,
my
he's
freaking
hogging
bed
up all the
until
experience.
he finally, if he did that night, showered. His clothes never got washed until he was completely out of them and would sit piled up in the corner of his room and some by his desk in the living room, including underwear. He washed his socks in the bathtub with our shampoo and hung them up to dry on the rail. He'd leave those mildew-ridden articles there until they were crusty and he also left the black, literally black, bath water he had washes them in sitting in the tub until I emptied it so I could fricking shower, and that water smelled like foul BO. Next, he never did dishes, and left them sitting around the house. He lost a few of my dishes despite me telling him not to use them many times. He also cooked bacon, constantly, in a pan and
I like
never
bacon.
washed it out. It would sit
You
there,
build like
and the
bacon.
one
You
time I
build
did
like
clean it for him,
ham.
he yelled at me and said he hadn't been washing it so it could build
Everybody's
up the
mouth.
aroma. He also cooked eggs and chicken in it, which crusted all over the stove. He rarely, very freaking rarely, helped pay for things like toilet paper and paper towels. If we were out, even things like light bulbs or dish soap, he would say,
Well, we're gonna have a
"I'm not
Pokemon
buying
battle.
it, because my tolerance is higher and I can
I
go
beat the
longer
gym
in the
leader.
conditions than you." He also never bought soap
I'm
or
almost there.
shampoo and
She
used
killed my.
mine.
She killed
He
my.
never vacuumed, mopped, did dishes, or wanted to
I
take
had to
out
have the
trash. That's
just
a
did.
job for women. He had said, "I am female. I want to punch the bastard." I had a roommate my freshman year of college who was one of the worst people I've ever met. He left our 9x12 feet room only to go to class, and would order Domino's every night. Day and night he would sit at his sweet custom computer with a window and blue LEDs and watch South Park while cackling like a hyena. He met a 14-year-old girl on some website or chat room and would talk to her on his Bluetooth headset for hours at a time, trying to convince her to meet up with him and let him take her virginity,
The
reassuring
fuck?
that it would only hurt at the beginning. Kid was freaking awful. He drank 2 times all semester, once during parents' weekend when he ended up making an bus of himself in front of everyone that lived in the dorm and their families, and the other time was right before one of his final exams. The night before this drunken exam he spent at least 5 hours attaching the fuses from a brick of firecrackers together so that he could set it off at 3 AM and pee off everyone that was trying to sleep. It did look cool though. The worst part of all was that he was a chronic fapper. He would fap while he thought I was asleep. When I went to the bathroom for a minute, anytime all the time. Constant fapping. However, this story ended well as he was asked to leave school at the beginning of the next semester as his GPA was a 0.49. Him moving out was one of the best days of my freshman year. My roommate was a really awesome Chinese guy who bought and cooked anything that was on sale. Dinners on his night of cooking were weird. My favorite is the time he bought a whole 2 kilograms of corn flour because he thought it was going to be delicious. It went something like this. Me, what are you going to do with it? Him, UHH, mixes it with water. Me, you have goo. I'm not sure that's really edible. Him, I will cook in the wok, cooks the dough into a giant dome-shaped crust. Me, we cannot eat that for dinner. Really man, I'll cook tonight. Him, no problem. No problem. I have idea. Chops the dome into strips with my scissors. Me, well, at least it will fit into our mouths. Him, in my hometown.
I mean, we were
If you
just
do not like
outside.
the
I don't know
food,
why
you
we
must
couldn't
eat
just take it
anyway.
out.
I will add chili. Adds chili. This goes on for a while with various improvements to the meal. In the end it was chili flavored strips of corn flour crust, cucumber chunks seasoned with vanilla protein powder, then fried in
And I was about to
sesame
get
oil
wrecked.
in a bowl with milk and crushed
Exactly.
cornflakes. It was okay, but he was a
But you
funny
got
guy
hurt.
so I didn't mind.
I heard you.
It
For me.
really doesn't bother me to be the one that has to do all the extra stuff.
Nobody
I
can
want
take a
clean
hit. Oh my
place.
god.
The roommate doesn't
be
care, so it's kinda on
Huh?
me. So I'd take out all of the garbage,
Fighting, that's-
recycling, do all the common room cleaning, etc. I just figured if I didn't keep doing it, I'd wind
My
up
team is
having
full
to
of
do
glass
it all
cans.
anyway. But nastier. The one thing that really got me though
Like
was
I'm
when I
nasty.
got home one day and he was all excited. Hey Admiral Philbo, I know how you like to keep the place clean, so I cleaned my room. See? He had cleaned his room all right, and left 6 months of accumulated trash in the kitchen for me to take out. At least I got some of my dishes back. At the worst point of my borderline homeless post-high school years, I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment with 4 other guys. 3 of us were sleeping on couches in the living room. The 2 bigger guys in one bedroom and the other bedroom housed all our stuff. I knew all of the guys from a local business group, and this was only for about 2 months for the tail end of the lease. So my assumption was that the place was dirty only because we were all so cramped. We then all moved into the upstairs of a 3-bedroom with a den house. One of
Oh yeah,
the
Register
guys,
has a high
Carl,
critical.
was the son of the lady that owned the house. He ended up taking the den and renovating it into his own room. Fast forward a few months, all of a sudden he has an ant infestation and can't sleep in there anymore. In the interim he decided to sleep in the main living room on one of the couches. Thought process here is, fine, he'll get it fixed and he'll go back in no time. False. This goes on for the next 2 years. It wouldn't have been so bad if he weren't incredibly lazy, slightly overweight, in his mid-30s and sleeping in just his underwear. Imagine trying to bring anyone,
What the
let alone
fuck?
a potential lady friend over,
Psychic
and
types.
explaining the large,
What?
mostly nude amorphous
Psychic.
blob on the couch in the first room we
Bug,
walk
dark,
into.
and ghost.
To make things worse, he would never clean up after himself and at random times would kick his blanket off and randomly be nude. We attempted several times to bring the issue up with the landlady, Cole's mom, but being that he was the baby of the family, she would blame us for what was going on and leave it at that. We tried looking into his room once on a rare
That's such a
occasion he
dumbass
wasn't
gig.
home,
Fuck
and it was
off.
like an episode of Hoarders. Useless junk piled 5-6 featuring high with plates and bowls half filled with food just rotting and creating
Make sure you
its
do the
own
battles
ecosystem.
outside
It
of
was at that
Nimbus's.
point that we decided we needed to move out. A couple
They're in
of
the
the
desert
guys were
resort.
smart and got out sooner, so Carl eventually just took over one of their rooms
Outside
and
of what?
replaced his couch with an inflatable mattress. I was
This is
able to
basically
leave a few
Coliseum
months
all over
later,
again.
and last
Yes,
I
you're
heard,
right.
Carl was still sleeping on his mattress and his mom was about to lose the house.
That
No
one
else
hit
wanted to
KO'd
move
my
and to pay
fucking
rent. Surprise.
Patillo.
I could go into more detail, but in essence of keeping it short, that's my horror story. TL. DR. Lived with a replica of
Even though it was a
Carl
grass
from
type.
Aqua Teen
But
Hunger
we're not gonna
Force.
talk about that.
Had a roommate who moved into my spare bedroom after she separated from her husband. She got caught banging a guy at work. Red flag. But I was desperate to fill the extra room. Fast forward 4 weeks and she is soliciting on Craigslist. Our apartment was a revolving door of random hookups, full swaps, threesomes, etc. She would seldom host the hookup events, but the creepy dudes would still come over to hang out and meet up. There was a 24-hour period where she banged 4
You
people.
beat Bianca?
Had a guy over for brunch.
Okay.
Different one for an early dinner.
I'm about to beat
and a
her.
threesome
I'm gonna
that
go
same
heal.
night. I ended up getting a dog, German Shepherd, just to feel like I had backup in the event of a rogue guest.
Hey, she didn't
My
really do
freshman
anything.
year roommate was on a host of antipsychotic medications. One day he said he was running low on his meds and was having delusions of killing us. He then described the order in which he would kill me and my other 2 roommates and why. Luckily, I convinced him to kill me last. I have always lurked here, but figure I might as well post on this one. I have a couple stories.
Wait, did
Nothing
you hear my
too
Pokemon?
epic, but sucky or awkward. 1. Our dorm rooms were just
Then you
one
have the
big
nerve to
square
heal my
with 2 desk
Pokemon.
beds in it, where the bed is
This
raised
big.
above the desk. I came back from my morning class around 11 AM, and promptly decided it was nap time. I woke up about an hour and a half later, rolled over, and my roommate was jacking off. I was stunned, and just rolled back over, tried to tell myself I imagined it. I never brought it up but inquired about transferring rooms later that afternoon. I transferred into a room with a friend from high school, which was a good bad idea, which leads me to my next. 2.
What's a
Next
good bad
roommate
idea?
definitely had some issues. I walked in on him once holding a razor to his wrist, which I then had to convince him it was a bad idea. I had to take care of him twice when he got sick from smoking pot, drinking pot brownies. One time with another friend from high school, so double the fun for me. He also had a problem with farting a lot. He did it more than anyone I know. One night he woke both of us up because it was so loud. 3. I moved into an apartment with 3 friends I had known for a while. One pretty well, the other 2 just acquaintances. The second day I was living there, I came back from work and there was no power. I asked the one guy who was in charge of paying the electric bill what was going on. He gave me a BS story that later conflicted with a story he told one of my other roommates. Long story short, he hadn't paid the bill for the last 6 months and had been spending the money the prior roommates had given him. He
I'm tired
also
of
never
playing.
cleaned up food when he cooked to the point out kitchen eventually turned into a sweat. I moved out in less than 2 months. Thank goodness I wasn't on the lease. Those are my crappy stories. I let my friend stay at my apartment for free after she got kicked out of her boyfriend's house and had nowhere to go. I even bought her food, let her use my school supplies, shampoo, laundry detergent, etc. I didn't expect her to be there for more than a month, but she ended up staying for 8 months. Once summer rolled around, she started complaining that it was too hot in the apartment. I was struggling with money, so I told her to start paying half of the utilities if she wanted the AC on all the time. She said that she always sees me leave lights on, so she refused to pay half of the utilities. She would only pay 1/5. She said she was my guest, and I was being disrespectful by not keeping my
Oh my
apartment
god,
at the
here's
temperature
Roost.
she
Oh
wanted.
boy.
And it was
Fucking
even more
Roost.
disrespectful to ask her for money because I initially said she could stay there for free.
Ah,
But
killed
she
it
threw
for a
such
guy
a
shot.
huge fit that I told her to forget it, and bought her a fan for her room.
Please
My
flinch.
electric bill was $100 more
If you
than
flinch
it was
once,
the
he's
previous
dead.
year when I was living alone. So I figured she was secretly running the AC while I was at work. I went home in the middle of the day to
What's
find my
grass?
apps at 62
Shots fired?
degrees when it was
Bug,
100 degrees outside. I finally
flying,
told her I wasn't
poison,
expecting her to live there for so long
ice.
and to start paying rent. I asked her for $300 a month for her own bedroom in a 2-bedroom app that cost me $1,200 a month.
Spamming.
More than fair. She was so angry that I would
Fucking
even think of asking
spamming.
for rent that stopped being my friend. Blocked me on Facebook. and moved in with her new boyfriend.
It's literally
The fricked up
spamming.
part is that she made twice as much money as me and
Lynch,
didn't even
move.
work. She got $1,700 a month from the gov for going to
Lynch,
school plus
please, Lynch.
$1,200 that her parents gave her a month. She could buy a new iPad, new iPhone, get hundreds of dollars in new clothes every month, and go out to
My
bars every
God.
other night. But if I asked her for $300
It's
bread money,
spamming.
then I'm a
Fucking
fricked up
camp.
friend and disrespecting her. TL. DR.
Can I get a
let my
crit or
friend stay
something?
in my spare bedroom when she unexpectedly got kicked out of her old place. I started asking her for rent
This
after
isn't
8
fair.
months, and she said I was a fricked up friend. The good thing about dumbass friends like yours is that they often decide to go away forever like this. Let her ruin someone else's life.
Thank you.
A previous roommate immediately after moving and starting putting food in the recycling bin, along with cigarettes and the diapers of a friend's baby. Side note, we're pretty sure the friend's baby is really the roommate's baby she gave up. After telling us she didn't drink, started going through 50 beers a week, announced she was a nudist and will be naked unannounced, giving us no chance to plan bringing guests over, ate our food, and drank $50 plus dollars of my booze. She had a new guy over every night. We're pretty sure these men were paying her because she had no job but was buying drugs, cigarettes and some food. She would let these men use our bathroom products. I even caught her and her guest using my deodorant and she denied it, even though I saw it. She stole $400 in cash. She lost her key and started climbing in through the windows instead of just asking for a new key, and when we started locking the downstairs windows she stole a ladder to get into her second story window. She
I
filed
should
a
just use
false report to
smell.
the police claiming she was violated and mugged and claimed she had hundreds in cash in her purse to claim insurance money. She was also on heroin. She got kicked out after 1 month for not paying rent or utilities. She also kept asking to borrow my and the other roommates' clothes and shoes even though she weighed 100 pounds more than us. Also, the most frequent guy she had over who was one of her baby daddies, we found out later was and probably still is wanted by the police for theft. I need a place to stay, so a good buddy of mine lets me have an extra room he is not using. He is getting rent dirt cheap, $300 for a 3-bedroom within walking distance of downtown. About a year later he just up and quits his fairly high paying job. He tells me a bit before this that rent went up because the landlord found out I was there. Fair enough. I am still only paying $300 for a decent apartment. I am working nights at the time and confront him a few times about the loud music he plays when I am trying to sleep. He corners me one night about this, saying I am being a bad roommate. Shortly after quitting his job he got caught for DUI. More on this later. He starts going to the bar more and more frequently till he is there from open to close every night. After about
be
6
sharing
months
it?
of this he finally gets his sentence and goes to jail. His mother and I agree that I will continue to pay my half of the rent and she would take care of the other half. However, 2 days
I'm about to
later
beat him
I
now.
get a summons. Rent has not been paid for 7 months. Turns out
Oh my
he
God,
has
it's
been taking the
444.
money both I and his mother had been giving him for rent and spending it nightly at the bar. Rent had never been increased and I now have 1 week to find a new
Damn,
place to
Smell,
live
you
and get out
fucking
of
one-hit
this
KO'd this
apartment.
pig night.
My male roommate had a fascination for my underwear and shoes. I had my suspicions, but I found out for sure after coming home early one day and I found him out on the balcony with most of my bras, panties, thongs and my favorite pair of high heels. He was just rolling around in them, licking the crotch. Took a while for him to even notice I was there. He was so ashamed. Such a bad dog. I can't tell if you actually had a dog, or just a really weird guy for a roommate. I had a couple bad ones. The worst was a construction worker from Lithuania who was in England to work for a few months. We shared an apartment, 8 people including 2 other high colleagues, and it was sort of
No.
messy. So much that he would often say how he missed his wife's care and tidiness. One evening I had just finished eating and was smoking a cigarette. He came to the kitchen and started throwing the unwashed pans around, sweating in Lithuanian. I understood what was going on and got a bit upset. So I just basically told him to chill the frick out and that I would wash them as usual right after the cigarette. At this point, he freaked out, flipped the coffee table, and all the plates cups on it, with a kick and came at me in fury with a loaded fist. I should mention that he was
Wow,
5
one
minutes
step into the
and
fucking
10 seconds for
quicksand.
about 250 pounds of muscle and quite under the influence of Martell. They downed a bottle each night. At the last moment,
We found
he
everybody
decided
here.
not to hit me, but I shat
all
my
did that.
pants, not literally, and was a bit shaky for an hour or two
Make sure you
afterwards.
fight the
Had he not
people in the
somehow
desert resort.
restrained himself, he would have made dog
All
food
you.
out of me. Honorable mention for my current roommate's boyfriend, who makes the whole house stink like a junkyard whenever he takes a crap. That man's rotten inside.
I want y'all to
Not my roommate, but in my dorm freshman year this one kid went through 3-4 other roomies because he would repeatedly get caught masturbating. Sometimes his roommates would walk in on him beating it multiple times a day and he apparently never had the foresight to lock the door. He also played a lot of Warhammer, but I'm not sure if it's related. I had a male roommate, I am female, that I found on Craigslist. He seemed okay until his girlfriend dumped him. Then he got into some crazy crap. One night, I was studying for a midterm with my parrot on my shoulder. I walk out of my room to get some water and saw that he is walking into his bedroom with a H. You could tell this lady was a H from a mile away. Very overweight, teeth missing, barely any clothing, strong, cheap perfume. Okay, not cool, but I'll just keep going out my business. So, I come out later for something, and she is running from his bedroom. He is running after her, naked, but turns around to put something on when he sees me. Meanwhile, my parrot gets startled and freaks and flies to the highest thing around, her head. She freaks about that and falls to the floor, thrashing about. I'm screaming hold still so I can untangle my parrot's feet from her hair before she gets crushed. I get the bird out and go to put her somewhere safe in my room. My roommate, at this point, has returned and is physically assaulting the H in the hallway. I react instantly by running out and screaming at him to stop. He acquiesces and returns to his bedroom. I lock the front door. He starts texting me that I need to put out now, blah blah blah. His creepiness scale heavily increased after that. Eventually, I had to just move out to get away from him. TLDR, my roommate brought her H home and beat her. My college roommate Mike and I slowly
hooker.
entered into a prank war with each other. He printed picture of Gots and Tubgeneral and left them under my sheets to find at bedtime. I retaliated by taking
My
all his
God.
boxes, putting them in a bag, adding water and freezing them.
You told me to put
I
my
wake up
heart
one night and
in the
realize I'm being
bag.
duct taped to my bed. I retaliate by password locking his computer. The war dies down, but then a mutual friend of ours visits. Mike is taking a shower and we fill a trash can full of ice water and douse Mike in it. His scream reminded me of the lit rat guy from Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi. If that rat guy had died a painful death. And then Mike gets me back. I wake up for my 8 AM class and shower. I go to blow dry my hair and this billow of smoke hits me in the face. Holy crap. My hair dryer caught fire. It was early in the morning. At that point I realize it is not smoke, but powder. Gold Bond. Mike had re-engineered the back of it to have a container and he filed it with Gold Bond. It's in my mouth. It's in my eyes. I cough. I cry. He wakes up. He laughs his butt off. I run fully clothed to the shower and turn it on to wipe my eyes out. I swore revenge. About a year later I stole all his freezy pops. TLDR. Roommate and I entered a prank war that ending with me crying. This is more of a horror story from the dorms, but roommates are roommates. There were 3 of us to a room, and each room was divided into 2 sections. It really was just a closet between the two. The 2 girls were 18, fresh out of high school, best friends, and cheerleaders. I think their most common phrase was OMG. They were incredibly passive aggressive. At that time, I was really struggling with my weight and depression. They knew this. Each room segment had a mirror, and their favorite activity was to come to my side, look in the mirror, pinch their skin and whine, OMG I am so fat. I swear, if I were any fatter I would just kill myself. OMG so grotesque. At this point I was 22 or 23, and really didn't feel the need to yell at them. I had better plans. They would go home every weekend, and during that time I would take their jeans and remove the buttons. Then, each week I would move the buttons slightly to the side so that the fit became smaller and smaller. Eventually they began to freak out and spend all their free time at the gym. I think I won. TLDR. Skinny B got what was coming to them. You should be ashamed of how awesome you are. You have been visited by the romantic doggo. comment love is magic so you never fall in the friend zone. Like and subscribe, you magnificent person. What was the most baddest escape you've ever made? I'll start. NSW. One of my greatest college moments was a lucky escape. I was having a really crappy day and was waiting for the city bus after a rough day of classes. I just wanted to get home, get my buzz on and game a little bit. I was waiting for the bus on a one-way street. Before the bus got there, an SUV with 3 frat guys had pulled up and they had their window down and were making fun some guy at the bus stop. It's been 8 years maybe, so I can't remember exactly what they were saying to him, but I think he was foreign, possibly an exchange student, but they were blowing this guy a whole lot of crap. As I mentioned, I was already having a bad day, and these guys caught me at the wrong time or something. I'm not confrontational, and I've never been in a fight in my life, but at this moment I was heated. So the light turns green and the guy riding shotgun is hanging out the window and talking crap as they drive away. In a moment of blind rage, I picked up their nearest thing to me, which ended up being a half-drank Starbucks coffee from that morning or something, and sidearmed this thing right at this car. And wouldn't you know it, it was a direct hit on this guy as they are driving away. At some point the lid came off the coffee.
Timber.
I'm not sure if it was before it hit him or afterwards, but this cold coffee ended up splashing all inside the moving vehicle as they were turning left through this light. I can only hope it sprayed the other Doucher bags in there as well. If it was CS, it would have been a heck of an aid toss. Everyone else waiting for the bus cheered me. The car kept going and hung another left, I could tell, and I assumed was going to circle the block and come back after me. I was like, well frick it, it's on now. Hopefully someone at this bus stop gets my back, but let's do this. Just then, not one, but 2 city buses pull up at the exact same time. 2 different routes. This happened occasionally, but was pretty rare from my experiences waiting there. But that day my luck had finally changed. I hop on the one that will take me home and make my escape. As we pull away, I look out the window and see the car I had hit driving frantically and following the other bus that was going a different direction. I can only hope that they
I got
followed
TM
us
dig.
for every stop it had waiting for me to get off, and wasted another couple hours of their time.
You heard me?
It was truly one of the greatest moments of my life. They
I'm gonna
probably
teach
beat
it
the
to
crap out
Sam.
of the immigrant guy who got on the other bus. I'm cruising down a highway when I see a cop going the other direction. I look down and, yep, 12 over the speed limit. I make the first left turn and look back to see the cop bang a UE as I turn. I speed down the road, hightail it up a dirt driveway. Park the
Wait,
car,
was I supposed to go
and
straight or
turn
was I
the
supposed to
thing
make a
left.
left?
I really didn't need to do
make a
that
left.
since it was broad daylight. But
I mean, you
was
could make a
over
left for to
cautious.
fight the trainers,
Sure
but you could just
enough,
go straight
the
to
cop
the city.
speeds down the road past
I'm going
my
to fight the
driveway
trainers.
with his lights on. My one luck with that whole thing was it had just rained, so the dirt in the driveway hadn't kicked up. I left momentarily after the cop drove down the road. It might not be a big deal, but I can't begin to describe how milquetoast I can be and how rarely I do these little maneuvers. Okay, so it seems that milquetoast has caused quite a stir. I'm glad my choice of words today has sent some of you into a quixotic tizzy. Milquetoast, a very timid, unassertive, spineless person, especially one who is easily dominated or intimidated. A milquetoast who's afraid to ask for a raise. I used it as an adjective, which goes against its lowly noun status. So I hope Merriam-Webster won't try to beat me up. One night, we had firecrackers. A lot of firecrackers. Around 4 AM, we decide to go to the local elementary school and light them off. We're going crazy, having so much fun with it, when my friend remarks, "You know, this kind of sounds like we're shooting guns." At that moment, a police cruiser pulls into the parking lot. He flashes his lights once. We all bolt. We start running through the field and over fences. I look over the fence and notice that there were 3 cop cars. Stopped.
You
They
get
seem to be
Solosis.
talking to each other. 2 of them leave with
It's better
lights
than
flashing,
Moon.
and 2 officers get out of the other one and start bolting
Nothing
towards us.
disrespectful.
We run fast.
Fine, never
We
mind, I'll
feel
try to
the
help you
cops
out.
head towards the road. So we run
I'm
parallel hopping
gonna be
fences
flipping
until we
the
can go away from
But
it.
like,
At one point,
Solosis
the cops were gaining.
actually
So we split up.
something.
One cop followed each
Plus
group.
it's way
I headed
stronger.
towards a large park. Suddenly, I hear
I ran
Gary,
into another
the
fuck-
biggest freaking dog
remark.
ever. It's looking at me. It's angry. I freeze up and the cop catches up to me. He's coming towards me when I say, "Dude, No, there is a pit bull right there, and it
This
is
is
not
overall a
happy.
better Pokemon.
I'll come with you. Just don't make any sudden movements. We begin
No
to
man
walk
left
away.
behind.
Slowly, the cop motions me
So
towards
who's
the
your
gate.
team?
I go first, and he stands guard.
Alright, so my
As
team.
soon as I'm out
Currently,
the gate, I bolt again. I
that's a
felt
lot.
bad, but the cop was not going to catch me. There was no way he
Scraggy.
could move fast enough to not pee off that dog. I got away. The cop was really
Timbar.
key. I could hear him lumbering around.
You know, I had
while
to
I
trade
heard
to
some
like
trees
evolve it,
swearing.
right?
Around 15 minutes later, he finds
You have to
out
trade
that some
to
of my
evolve
friends are caught
Timber.
and goes to help them out. One friend got caught and
Are you fucking
charged with a
serious?
misdemeanor.
I'm so dead ass.
He ratted no one out. Good times.
What level?
Back when I was
It evolves
19, I went
once,
to Disney
but like,
with my family.
It
I
evolves
am the
twice.
youngest of 4
I
children.
mean, it evolves
All of my
twice,
siblings and
but
their
like,
sons were of
you have to
age.
evolve the last
So my brothers and
stage.
sister decide to take
You
me
have to trade to
Downtown
evolve the
Fuck.
last
Disney
stage.
one night in the hopes I can
Yeah.
party with them. One of my brothers pulled a
I
sneak deal
know the
under
last
the
stage
table
of
when
Timber.
our waiter at some restaurant was checking ages. It worked, though I don't think we fooled him. I think he just
You will be
gave
getting
me
a
break.
Conkeldurr.
Here I am 19 in downtown Disney with the will to drink as much
I
as
know,
I want
Conkeldurr
in
is
this
pretty
particular
good.
bar. So naturally
I mean,
we
you could
start
use
handling car bombs. I am
a hack
plastered within
to
the hour and my
evolve it.
siblings and I end up at this club with a revolving dance floor.
Oh yeah, you're
My
not using an
sister-in-law
emulator, never
decided
mind.
that she did not want to drink anymore, so she took off her bracelet and hacked it onto my wrist,
Hitting your red
which
already.
worked, and I
What are you
was
gonna
I'm
do?
a straight to Conkeldurr.
floor club.
Like, I know.
Next thing I know, I am dancing with the hottest girl in the place. I am a bit of a nerd, so this is pretty new to me at the time. We are dancing away. I have a drink in my hand when I feel this strong grasp on my shoulder. Disney police. May have been a security guard, I have no idea. To this day I was trashed. My hacked bracelet had fallen off and this guy was asking
my
for
God,
it.
this-
I tell him I don't have it on me and he said I had to go with him to the Disney police station. I don't know where this came from, but the following words came out of my mouth led the way. The cop guard
Oh my
took
fucking
my
god, I
words
hate when they do that
seriously and
bullshit.
led
Get a
the way.
critical hat
I
the last
immediately
fucking
did a
minute. So stupid.
180 while ripping off my hat and shirt. I had an undershirt on and stuffed them in my pants
Oh my
for a
ex.
quick disguise. You know that song where everyone gets in a line and the singer is going to the left, right step now. I don't know the name of it. Well, that song is playing and the whole club is dancing in tune to it while I am moving my way through the crowd on a revolving floor while a crap ton of security guards, police officers are looking for me. This goes on for a couple minutes before one of my brothers finally finds
There's a lot
me
of fucking
and helps me
trainers.
to a side exit. I told him to hold on and I merged back into the line dance to score the hot girl's number. I escaped with the number and 7 years later her and I are still together. That is the best story with a gets the girl ending. My uncle was on the 91st floor of the South WTC Tower. Felt and saw a plane freaking crash into the North Tower. He and the 2 people he was with got the heck out of there as fast as they could. He was about half a block away when the second plane hit. I'd say that's probably better than any escape I've personally experienced. My mom said he took both elevators down. So I was at a college football game visiting my sibling as a teenager. I was drinking quite a bit since this was a college that had excellent tailgating. Also, I had brought a bag of herb with me. I don't know why I brought a bag of herb with me besides the fact that I was smoking with friends before tailgating. Anyways, my sister was able to find me a student id so that I could sit with her and my friends, who attended the same college, in the student section. After drinking quite a bit, I stumbled to the entrance
Oh,
of the
a good
stadium and stood
dwebble?
in line to get in.
Well,
At
you
the
getting a
front of the
dwebble?
line, the
I don't know.
security was searching people for hidden
Would it
flasks
be worth
because
it,
the
though?
stadium
Here's a
sold
ground,
beer and clearly the
and
college
bug.
wanted to make
Rock
money.
and bug.
I, as the drunk
and
young
bug.
I was,
Yeah.
forgot about
I already
the
have
weed
a
in my
bug
pocket.
type.
The security,
I have a grass bug
unfortunately,
type.
found it. So there I was, caught by security, being dragged up to the police table. The cop
God,
at the
it's
table
fucking
called for
camping.
a squad car to come pick me up. At that time, I felt like a trapped animal, sweat and anxiety rushing over me. The security guy, on orders from the cop, pushed me over to the street to wait for the squad car. However, the street
Thank
was so
you.
packed that the squad car
Fucking
would most
camping
likely
for-
be a couple of minutes.
Just
As
die.
we stood next to the
What'd happen?
barricades, a recent mother was attempting to push her stroller through the divide. I, in my drunk mind, decided this was it. I leaned back against the hand of the security guard to make room for the mother and he, luckily, responded to my movement by also moving back. As soon as she made it through the barricade, I jumped the divide and ran faster than I had ever run. I sprinted through the crowd, weaving between other drunk fans, Hearing their remarks as I passed, knowing that the security guard was behind me but losing distance, I made it through the first rough patch, ripped off my sweatshirt, and continued. I slowed as the alcohol began to take its toll on my endurance but was cheered on by a couple of drunk guys who yelled, "You can do better than that," encouraged. I picked up speed, rounded a corner, and up between some parked cars, waiting to see if the security guard had made the distance. Luckily, he did not. After a couple of minutes, I stood up, shaking like heck, and walked across the street off campus. I then proceeded to violently throw up what seemed like the past couple days of food behind an apartment building. To this day, I try to imagine what went through the security guard's head as he chased this drunk kid for a couple of blocks. I sometimes wish I could talk to him about what was a very significant action in my life, how he felt, if he had given up to allow me to go, if he was stopped by that encouraging group of drunks, if he was embarrassed to lose me. But then I take a deep breath as I realize how lucky I was to not have ruined my life that day.
God damn, why is everyone getting a critical hit? That's so stupid.
Back when I was in high school, I was dating this girl. We'd go back to her house after school and have some fun together quite often. The house is a 2-story house with a door to the front driveway down in the basement hangout area, and a front door about 5 feet to the side and 5 feet higher, middle of the 2 floors, away from the basement door. We're down in the basement having fun, and her mom comes home. Well, actually, there's a window and we see her shadow walk by. Crap tacos. So I scramble to get ready while her mom is fumbling with the keys to the house. I put my hand on the basement doorknob and wait for her mom to start opening the front door. The doors are visible to each other and both make a lot of noise. I had to time this perfectly. I time it and perfectly open the basement door as the front door opens. Her mom is opening the door and walking in and doesn't notice the other door open as I exit.
Yes.
I then closed it when she closed it. I hid behind her car in the driveway for about 5 minutes, and then came back up to the front door as if I was just arriving. I have that memory back of my mind. It was executed perfectly. Bond, you must time this perfectly.
Mr. Bombast, my booty
Still pretty crazy. I knew a Catholic priest who had escaped the
How the
invasion
song
of
go?
Poland during World War II. According to his story, the Nazis had prepared a boat and told the priests and followers of the area that they could voluntarily flee
Time
the
is of the
country on
essence.
that boat. His instinct told him it was a trap, so he stayed back and later watched as the boat sailed away and exploded in the distance, or was set on fire. I don't remember. He knew it was only a matter of time until he was persecuted, and somehow through the chaos he grouped up with a photographer fellow who knew of a group planning an escape at nightfall. So they threw themselves into a pit of dead bodies, playing dead until it was dark, and so made their escape. He died peacefully of old age in his church in Argentina. Yeah, pretty ironic place to go. But dang. TLDR. Priest evades Nazis by playing dead in a body pit behind enemy lines. Not my story, but that of a teacher I had in high school. Apparently, his school had a regular prank where the recent grads would come back to the high school on the night of prom and shut off the power to the school. However, the year my teacher participated, that had put extra security in. I don't remember the exact details of how he managed to get the power off without being deterred immediately, but he did and was then spotted. At this point he takes off through a neighborhood nearby, jumping fences and running through yards. In one of these yards he apparently tripped on a small fence around a garden. According to him, the only thing it could have kept out of the garden was a turtle, but when he fell he shattered his wrist. But
I remember when.
anyways.
I
The fun
remember
part is
when.
that after a week or two went by, he finally decided to see a doctor about his wrist. They told him since he had waited so long, his wrist had started to heal incorrectly and would need to be rebroken immediately so that it could be put in a cast. He of course agreed to it, until he found out that he would need to be put under heavy anesthetic for the procedure. Under the effect of this medication, he would have been unable to take his final that was later that day. So, he told the doctor that he would do it without a medication. The doctor broke his wrist and my teacher ended up taking that test that day with a freshly broken wrist. TLDR. Teacher shattered his wrist after tripping on a turtle fence after shutting off the power to his high school and had the wrist rebroken later without anesthetic so he could take a final. Holy crap, your teacher is bloody awesome. My escape wasn't really badass, just bad. Back in high school I was casually seeing this girl who lived with her ridiculously overprotective dad. He demanded that she was not to date, let alone sleep with any boys until she was 18. She was 16 at the time. This wasn't much of a problem as my parents were cool, so she would come over to my house and tell her dad she was going somewhere else. Anyway, he goes away one weekend on a fishing trip, so we decided to take advantage of this opportunity and spend Saturday night at her house.
And this
We
Lu-
had
Lu-
just
ah,
begun
fuck,
our ski
Muma is
adventures
gonna
when
just.
her dad
Never mind.
returns home a day
I thought it was just gonna die from the
bad
sandstorm.
weather or something, and starts heading for the her room where we are both naked. So I panic, quickly grab my clothes and think to attempt an
Wake up,
ambitious
wake up,
Superman
wake
leap out
up,
of her window,
wake
followed by
up,
a commando
wake
roll on
up,
the grass
wake
below.
up.
Only problem was I
Wake,
didn't realize
wake.
that her window was
Thanks.
shut. My head shatters the glass and I get stuck halfway. Trying to free myself, I do a 180, with the glass digging into my stomach and back, making scars I have to this very day. My back was arched against the window frame.
Vivian,
and
did
I
you enter the
try
little
and
cave
wiggle
thing?
my way out of the glassy death
The one with
trap
the
head
Darman hands
first.
next to it?
Her dad then
Yeah.
opens the door to
I'm
the
about to
sight
enter
of
that.
my legs
You can
straight
get your
and trying
fossil
to free
there.
myself. My balls slapping against my thighs and my erection pointing for the sky, which somehow hadn't faded despite all the blood loss. I managed to free myself.
I'm pretty sure I haven't
get
fought all the
dressed and
trainers on
run
the
home.
outside.
Before mum took me to the hospital, TL doctor tried to Superman my way out of a closed window to avoid crazy dad. Ended up waving all my junk in his face and giving myself permanent scarring. I tore my ACL and meniscus in high school, and with my freshly ruined knee and a full leg immobilizer, went to the craziest party of my life. I got wrecked and decided to stumble home but unknowingly exited the house via a side door, not the front door. This side
Rihanna,
door
you're a
had
bad
additional
influence on my
steps that I was
Pokemon. I hope you know that.
unprepared for.
A
Basically,
very
I crapped
bad
down steps,
influence.
and my drunk butt ended up face down in the yard. Well, because my leg was locked straight from my hip to my ankle, and because I was OD high and
I stream
drunk
usually
I couldn't get up.
2 hours
I
a day.
dragged myself through the yard to a low-hanging tree branch and hoisted myself standing. As soon as I got vertical, I was blasted with the cop's car-mounted spotlight thingy. Alright young man, party's over. Stay where you are. I gave them my most practiced, hardened EGAF face, and took off running down the street. I hopped 3 fences and ran just over 2 miles with an incredibly injured knee. Freaking thing has never been the same since, and never will fully heal. But I'll be goddamned if I'm not remembered as White Lightning forevermore. As a person with a past knee injury, you made me cringe so bad. Last night my girlfriend's mom walked in on us literally 5 seconds after we put our pants back on. Good thing I don't last for more than like 30 seconds, otherwise it would have been a disaster.
The fuck?
So as an 18-year-old college student,
Two-pump
I
quarter.
rely on my handy fake kid to
He said
buy
2
liquor
pump
for
quarter.
myself and my friends. The usual store is a Ralph's located conveniently close to campus. I'll admit that I always get a bit nervous buying at a new store, but I had purchased at Ralph's a few times and so this night was unremarkable. As usual, I smiled demurely at the guard in the liquor aisle. Picked up
God.
a handle of tequila.
Can't take a hit for
headed
shit.
towards the register where
Mel, your
I was
character
shoved
sucks.
away from the young, stoner cashier and towards a severe-looking,
The Pokemon I named after you
paramilitary
suck.
I
when asked to
Pokemon.
present my id,
The
I
Pokemon
did so
named
without
after you
hesitation,
suck.
as both time
Explain that.
and experience has proved it to be credible both
Can
to
he
the
evolve
eye, to
already?
scanning and black lights. Being the older, distrustful clerk in a college
Now they're all
town,
gonna
she
die.
went to go scan it, taking unusually long.
It's
When
worth
she
it.
returned,
About
she
to die.
informed me that she knew it was a fake and I had one chance to take
Who
it
is
and go
fighting?
without
Oh, yeah, that
costing.
Pokemon.
I am
That
not
Pokemon
usually
right there, they
overwhelmingly
got like 3 of my
ballsy,
Pokemon.
nor do I usually use the phrase YOLO, but I
I'm dead
refused to
ass.
simply leave.
I'm dead
I
ass.
demanded to stay in the game
What
and
the
asked
bitch
for the
is-
manager. She looked utterly
Are you
scared
finding it
and
right
got
now?
called over a
Yes,
manager,
I thought
and once
this-
again they retreated to scan my id together. This time I was informed by the manager to simply take
No,
my
I'll take
card
this
and
bitch.
go.
That's exactly
At
what
this
I'm
point, I was in too deep.
I didn't waste the
people
potion
behind
yet.
me had
I
been
switched them
very
out.
understanding up until now, and I could not
I'm
stand the thought
quitting
of being
him.
escorted out of the most commonly used store in my college town in front of so many people. So I went for broke. I demanded to see the card being scanned.
Oh
In
my
this
god,
moment,
these critical
the manager led
hits.
me over and showed me that under the black light, the California state seals were not shining.
Now my Pokemon just gonna
He proceeded
die.
to pull out his own and showed me how his were repeated 3 times, brightly, across the length of his id.
And that's why I
Before
carry
it was
Moon.
my
Stupid
chance,
bitches.
I asked him when he had gotten his license last
I'm
renewed, to which
sacrificing
he
now.
replied, I don't know, a shitton of time ago. I guess I am
I'm sacrificing
the
Lily.
newest design of ID.
He's
The
asleep.
skills were far fainter than they
Sigaleth?
had previously been at a
Oh, yep,
balls.
I put him
And
in.
then,
He's basically
quite
dead
frankly,
now.
the most stupid moment of
Unless you
my
get a critical
life,
hit.
I asked the police officer standing next to us to verify that, in fact, the new licenses had
Oh my
been
fucking god!
my
He keeps getting
ID.
critical hits. It's going to make me
Incredibly,
fucking choke this fucking
incredibly,
Pokemon. Like, it's
he
so
did.
annoying.
He looked it over and told the manager it was legitimate.
I'm not
to stop
grinding,
giving
we're-
me such a hard time.
I don't like
was escorted
grinding.
back to the register. Manager
He's
apologizing.
whack.
He gave
Shut
me
up.
a $5 discount and left the store with the customers in line
Yeah,
behind.
I
me,
refuse to
actually
grind.
having survived a 10-minute ordeal.
Shut
Here
up.
we are. Used a cop
I-
to verify
these fucking
my
critical hits are
figure
so
and got my
stupid.
alcohol discounted
Damn,
for
you see
having
how I
to go to
know?
such trouble as a minor. Most cops don't actually give a frick. You were probably amusing and he wanted his Snickers bar.
Feel better?
This was
Better.
our sophomore year in high school and we thought it would be a great idea to have a party on a golf course hole. We pitched a tent and all was well until
Grind,
3
you
a.m.
little.
We saw flashlights, not normal flashlights, but motherfucking cop LED flashlights 3 feet from our
Okay.
tent.
Good
In my
train.
drunken stupor I reach in my pocket and whip out my pocket knife. I cut a giantess hole through the tent and fricking ran. They didn't chase me, but still I thought it was pretty badass. At the end of my stint as a used bookstore lackey at one of the worst stores in the world, I realized that I had been drawing dongs in books with a Sharpie for months with no repercussions. It turns out, right when I quit, a goddamn avalanche of customers started coming in complaining about finding magic marker dongs in their reading material. I can easily see this in the local news. Borders boner books baffle
That was like-
buyers. Freshman year of college, me and 4 friends used to always talk about stealing parking gates around campus. Cuz used to drive through them during the day,
Have no more
knocking them
repel.
down. So there was always 1 or 2 lying around for the
I'm running out
taking.
too.
Of course, being freshmen, this was mostly talk
Ooh,
that didn't
Yamas.
amount to much. One
Yaga.
night, however, when we all
Yamas.
had drank enough
Yaga.
evil courage, we decided that that was the night we would actually get them. So we get all dressed in black and head out the door only to find that the campus authorities had already replaced all the broken ones from earlier in the day. Did we quit and go home?
Probably wasted
No,
a
we
hell of
started
stats.
breaking the dang things off.
I probably
Feeling
did.
the rush of that first parking gate, we all get jazzed up for some more and throw
You'll
the
never
gate into
see
some
it
bushes a bit
coming.
later. We just start running buck wild around campus, knocking these things down and hiding them in the bushes. Being very drunk, it takes us a while to realize that nearly every corner we turn there seems to be police officers. And it takes even longer to realize that they seem to be after us. At this point we scatter and everywhere I turn I'm passing police officers. I even talk to one at one point who asks if I've seen a group of kids knocking down parking gates. Why heavens no, officer, I have not. Somehow none of them
Oh,
seriously
heavens,
turn
no.
their attention on me or any of my scattered comrades. One by one we all meet back up behind the student center to gauge the situation. We look around and realize that despite being chased by the police, we all took the time to go back to the bushes and retrieve the parking gates. We have 4 of these bad boys amongst the 5 of us. Turning back home, there is one more police car between us and freedom, and our 5th and final parking gate we had knocked down. Swear to God we pulled some cartoon crap and casually walked past the police car, about 40 yards away, with the parking gates perpendicular to our bodies, and they didn't notice. We grabbed the last parking gate and run through some bushes to make it to the back entrance to our dorm. That's not the end though. The next
No, this is
morning
more
we
like
hear
it.
from some of the other kids on our floor that were participating in a large hack on the dome in the center of campus that we were all over the police scanners they used to monitor the hacks. Apparently they didn't need to worry about anything that night because all the campus
They ain't
police
do
were focused
shit,
on
yo.
5 idiots knocking down traffic gates. They
This season
also
confusion,
heard that they
fuck
were
that.
extremely close to nabbing us several times but couldn't seem to catch us. To this day I have no idea how we escaped. A part of me assumes they must have felt some sort of 5 drunken buffoons zigzagging across campus carrying 10-foot parking
This is the
gates
shit we talking
around.
about.
I was in the 9th grade, and I was on the soccer team. We had a reputation for being basically uncontrollable bastards. Our coach the year before was a drunk, and he often missed practices. The new one was a young guy, and he hadn't quite established much authority over us. We enjoyed stealing wet floor signs, fighting, and other activities that in retrospect make us look like a bunch of annoying shoots. Anyways, one day we decided to roll TP, the old coach's house for betraying us. We planned it well. After an away game in a far corner of the state, we would meet up at a park near the school in a subdivision. We centralized into one car. There were about 10 of us who went. I was in the truck bed lying down with 3 or 4 others. A junior told me the 3 rules. Don't get caught, always run, and don't snitch. I, being a freshman, took these to heart. We drove for about 5 minutes to the other subdivision
on
where he
propel?
lived.
Yeah.
When we got there, we divided the toilet paper among ourselves and began our dirty work.
So are you
We
using the
spread out
fossils or
around the
not?
house, and I did my part. We did what we came to do for about 10 minutes.
Get
Then
the
we
fucking
heard a
flying
crash.
type one
Somebody
in the
had
other one.
accidentally hit a window, waking up the coach. At this moment,
To get
a friend
Tortilla.
of mine was putting a condom on the door. When he starts to see the handle turn, we start running like the wind. The door flies open.
It's
And the coach
Archeops.
stands with a shotgun and fires into the air with the guy at the door with the condom running for his life. I run like I've never run before. The
Oh my
truck we
fucking
came in
god, these
already
stupid
was
ass
pulling
critical
away with those
hits.
fortunate enough to be near it. I ran down the
Stupid ass
street
game.
and about 25 meters down dashed into the woods across from the house. I spirited through these woods, and about a minute or so later ran into 2 others. At this point we heard sirens, and the meetup point was at
Why the hell is it not
7
faster than
near
this
a
without?
busy
Oh my god.
intersection. In the daytime at least, about 1
Let
stroke
me get
to
the
a
fuck
mile
out of
away.
here.
We ran like heck. I lost my hat. We sprinted across the intersection during a lull in the traffic, and fortunately the truck and a few of the others were waiting. I hopped in the back and waited while the rest gathered. I heard the peal of sirens. However, everybody made it back except one guy who gave us all up after he was held at gunpoint. Ironically, this was the same guy who told me not to do just that. I ran. I didn't get caught, and I didn't snitch. But I still had to go clean up the next day. It's still a heck of a good time. You feel very alive running from a drunk Gulf War vet with a shotgun. The chances of me snitching at gunpoint are roughly 100%. In high school there was a dance where 4 schools would come together. I got high before because they usually weren't that fun. So when I got to the front gate, I paid my 20 bucks. A big burly security guard then screamed, "I smell pot," and he looked straight at me and charged. I grabbed my 20 bucks out of the money box and juked him out
What?
and ran for the door.
I
We
can
were
see
inside in the
the
cafeteria.
third stand
When I
truck.
got outside I saw
The
3
third
cops
one.
sitting
All you have to
by
do
a
is climb the
squad car.
stairs.
Immediately I pulled my shirt over my face and ran to the front gate of the school. The gate is about 15 feet high, so I had to scale that with 3 cops. 3 school security people with golf carts.
Let's see your
And the
screen.
principal on me, all while my shirt was over my head. It was light enough outside to see through it. After that I ran whilst being chased by golf carts and police cars into the park and into my grandma's house. The cops searched the house, but I was hiding in the attic. My grandma didn't hear me come in. 30 minutes later I just walked home, changed, and went back to the dance. The next day at school I was freaking out, but they didn't know it was me due to the shirt on my head. Not super cool, but still a good story to tell friends. My high school days. It was a Friday afternoon, and being a normal high school senior I walked home from school and started rolling myself a blunt. Everything was routine until I received a text from a girl, Katie, I had met at a party the weekend prior. She knew I lived close to the school and wanted me to give her a ride home.
What you
Taking
say?
the chance for a couple minutes alone with an attractive girl, I
Show me a
scrambled
screen.
to finish my blunt all but ran to grab my keys and hop in my truck. I pull up next to her in the parking lot 5 minutes
Oh.
later and she hops
Go
in.
right.
I get an unexpected peck on the cheek. This is going better than expected.
Damn.
It's about a 20-minute ride and we get talking.
Repels.
By the time we get
Where you
there,
at?
she's telling me about a party she's going to tomorrow
1,
and
2
I
step.
decide to press my luck and ask her to smoke with me. To my surprise, she accepts and invites me in.
Are you
This is
really?
going very, very well. Long story short, we both end up on her couch. I'm at a 4 and feeling pretty good about it. Clothes are being thrown on the floor at a fairly decent rate. Then the garage door. Oh crap. What the frick? Katie mumbles something about her dad coming home early on Fridays and tells me to hide in the closet in the next room. My stone self tells me this is a good idea and I grab my shirt and shorts and stumble into the next room. This is not a large closet. I did my best job of putting on my clothes silently, in the dark, in a closet. I hear Katie talking to her father about school. She texts me saying he'll go upstairs eventually and that will be my chance to escape. She'll let me know. Okay, not so bad. I'm listening intently and looking through the crack between the doors. Then he walks in. I'm in the closet nearly crapping myself watching this man get on the treadmill, facing me, and start jogging. I'm not cut out for this. I do my best job of getting
I'm at the new
comfortable
city.
and wait. It feels like a sauna. I'm
You didn't even
sweating.
get your fast
I'm
food.
high.
I don't
I'm
want it.
grabbing bricks. Then
That
the
place made me
treadmill
angry.
beats and he
I don't want
walks
no more.
out. Just like that. This might be my only chance. I'm leaving. I walk out of the closet and towards the door. I look around the corner and almost pass out. There he is, walking towards me from the kitchen, water bottle in hand. We make the worst eye contact ever made, and I make a break for it. Living room, hallway, foyer, door. Not looking back once. I run to my truck and started faster than I knew I could and get the flying frick out of there. Not surprisingly, I never talked to Katie after that. He didn't see my car. Her house was in a subdivision where cars normally park all down the street. My truck was in front of the house next door. Not an escape. Actually the opposite. One day my brother and I were dropped off at home after school by the people we carpooled with. It turned out we were locked out. We are usually the first home and I have a key. Although, the key was in my backpack and I didn't bring my backpack home that day because there was no homework. I checked all the doors and they were locked. My sister wasn't coming home for 2 hours.
A strong looking trainer, please help me.
Realized that the window to our living room
The
was
fuck?
unlocked. The problem was that the window was 10 feet off the ground. We then used a stick to push up the window and scream. This is the awesome part. We had to figure out how to get up. There was nothing I step on top of, but then my brother had a stroke of brilliance. The plan was that I would hold out my hands and he would run and step onto my hands as I lifted
What?
them up.
Oh,
This led to
you made it
us
back?
slightly flying high enough to grab onto something through the window. We were ready to do it. He ran and I tossed him up and he grabbed the window ledge.
what do you mean how?
He pulled
Walk
himself
slowly.
out and I jumped
Walk
and
slowly.
pushed his legs in. Success. He unlocked the front door and we got inside. TL. DR. Got into
Like,
our
don't
locked
run,
house
just walk.
using creativity and very poor gymnastic skills. Also, we now know that our house is prone to being robbed by
Oh my god,
acrobats.
he's spamming.
Back in high school, me and my friends would get on the roof of our school and hang out before track practice started. This was a regular thing for us and it was starting to lose its intensity. So senior year rolls around and we decide the last time we go up on the roof will be at night during the last week of school.
Wait,
Me and three
smell
of my
might
friends
evolve
drove
in,
to
like,
the
a
school
level.
and parked relatively far away and proceeded to the side of the school. There was an old driving simulation trailer that we would use to
Which
climb
fossil
up
said
onto
they
and then
didn't
jump across.
You
the
say you
roof.
want Terracuda,
We all
right?
got up on the roof
Get the
and sat
cover
down
fossil.
against the wall up there that overlooked one of the parking lots. We had been up there for about 15 minutes when a school bus pulls and that was dropping off the
Okay, we got the
baseball team
bike.
from late game. At first we were a bit nervous, but there was no way they would see us. We waited for the bus to leave, then got up and walked over to the spot where we had previously gotten up onto the roof. As we were walking,
Oh my god,
we heard
fucking
a loud
Bianca, leave me
metal bang
alone.
and two voices. Two janitors were coming up onto the roof and the ladder was between us and the only safe way down. One of my friends turns
I did not
around
battle
and
everyone under
whispers, "Ladder,"
I know you
and
did.
then sprints like
What level
a
are your
sucker
Pokemon?
towards the way off,
24.
leaving me and two
Oh.
of my friends hidden
Actually, we
behind
need
some
some
ventilation piping in this large metal box thing. So the two janitors are now on the roof and walking toward me and one of my friends. But we're crouched
24,
behind that
23,
metal box
21,
thing.
22,
I'm crapping myself and my friend with me is frozen with fear. My other friend
Me
is
too.
behind us to the left behind the piping. We had to Sam Fisher
Basically,
crap and
almost
moving around the metal box opposite the janitors. Then when they were far enough away we ran as fast as we could. While running my friend looks
You
back
got
and
your
slips
bike.
on a pipe and
Yes.
slams into the roof. The janitors
I'm gonna
turned
save
their
right here and end
flashlights
it.
toward us and we just ran toward the way off and jumped. I'm surprised no one broke anything on the landing. We met up with my other friend that had booked it from the beginning and hid in the tree line near the side of the school until we couldn't see the flashlights anymore. Then we walked to my friend's house and he drove us back to our car and we got out of there.
Frames, what the fuck?
DR. Trespassed on school property. Chilled on roof. Janitors show up. Sam Fisher. Freedom. There's a movie theater
Okay,
in my
let me
city
actually
that is
save right
smaller
here.
than the others, and is usually not nearly as busy. One time, a few of my friends and our dates walked in there without paying and saw a movie with no hassle. So on another occasion several months after, a different group of friends and I tried to do